Welcome again to the S.E.M podcast. Jack Bryce and Zach Hewlett are here again, and tonight we're joined by our friend Daphne Lane. Daphne, it's nice to have you. What part of the world are you calling from tonight?
I'm in Salem, Oregon.
Oh, very nice. Salem, Oregon.
Yeah.
Love that place. Spent many a wasted night up there for sure.
Fair enough.
Salem's not too far from Corvallis, where I used to kick rocks once in my life. So, well, good. We're excited to have you on the podcast. We've talked before this, and we'll just kind of let you start from the beginning of when you decided to go on a mission and your reaction of going to Scotland.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do it. I just kind of wanted to throw a disclaimer in there, though. Just the story that I'm going to share is my story, and it's the events that I talk about. They're real, they happened, and they're not always good stories. And I think a lot of times when it comes to like missions and stuff, everybody wants this like tell all the good stories and how it was just amazing good thing, but it wasn't that way for everybody. And so I'm going to share my story. I'm going to be honest about it and try to be as fair as I can, but it's my story. And so take it for what it is,
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. Like we talked about earlier this week, tell your truth. I mean, not all of us had sunshine and roses experiences when it came to the Scotland Edinburgh mission. So we get it completely, Daphne.
Yeah, I mean, there's good experiences too. So I mean, it's a combination, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Anyway,
I think that's a great caveat. Carry on.
Yeah, well, my dad went on a mission to Australia, and it changed a large part about him. I don't know if you can hear the dogs in the background. If you can, I'm so sorry, but they're going crazy because their owner just came home. So anyway, if so, I apologize. Anyway, yeah. So he went to Australia. It changed a large part of him and helped him to become a better person. And so he would always, tell us all these stories about his mission. And growing up, and so we heard all these stories. I always wanted to go. It was a big deal to me. Grew up in the church, born and raised. Pioneer heritage, all that kind of stuff. Grew up in Southern Arizona, so yeah, I don't know.
And I went to the same high school. I just found that out.
Yeah, that was just an amazing coincidence. Yeah, so we I don't remember what I was saying. Anyway, yeah, grew up there in Arizona. It was no, you're totally good. It was a good experience, and somewhere around 3 years before I took off on my mission, I started going out with splits, or with the local missionaries on splits every day, me and my best friend, and we would just go out there and spend time with them. And we had really good missionaries in that area, and I knew what a mission was supposed to be like, and you'd go with them and you could feel the spirit, and you'd meet people, and they always just carried this light about with them. And it was just I don't know, it was a really good experience, So by the time it came for me to put in my papers, I was so excited to go on a mission. I was looking forward to it. I knew what I wanted. I knew what it was supposed to be like, and was just really excited about that. One little thing I should throw in there. Side note, I'm trans, right? And so during the high school, junior high kind of times, whatever, I was feeling all these different feelings inside, and we don't really need to go into what all that feels like and everything. Just there was all these feelings, and I'm trying to deal with these feelings and understand what's happening. Most of the time, it just felt like I was a freak. And so it's this dark secret that you're trying to keep, and trying not to share, and just trying to move on with life and follow the path that the church lays out for you.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, get the call, and hey, you're called to serve in, Scotland Edinburgh mission, and I'm so excited about that. And I'm going to go out there to the land where the wee Scottish pipers up there on the brae playing his pipes, and everybody, while the loch monster is over there, and it's just this nice green place, and I was so excited for it, and what I got was definitely not that.
Oh no. Yeah. We must have been in the
So,
city the whole time.
yeah, well, and I was a little hick kid from a country town, so um,
That would be different.
what did I know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting deal though. So I went into the MTC in uh, beginning of June in 2008.
Okay.
The MTC I went to was the Preston, England MTC, and that just happened to be while the 10th anniversary of its dedication was. And so Elder Holland gave some talk while we were there. I mean, he didn't come there, but they videoed it, whatever, and he gave a talk about, how great it was to be there. I don't remember a lot about it. It's in my journals, I'm sure, but I don't want to go look it all up. It just the part that stuck out to me there was that my grandma actually had a brother that I don't remember the whole story, so you're gonna have to forgive me on it, okay? But at some point, he ended up joining the military and got shipped off, and then he ended up in the UK in England, and then decided to stay there. It was my understanding he married a girl from there and ended up staying there. And so my grandma hadn't seen him in 40 years or something like that. I mean, it was a long time, right? And so when I got to the MTC, I got permission from the the MTC president to have them come over. And so my grandma's brother came over and his wife, and I want to say kid and his wife, or I'm screwing the whole thing up. But anyway, yeah, four of them came over, three or four came over, and I got to sit down and try to go through one of the lessons with them, practice it. But at the same time, it was nice because I got to build a connection with some of the family that we hadn't been able to see or meet. And so that was just kind of a cool experience.
That would be really cool. How cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know. It was a good experience there. I enjoyed it. One day we got to go into town and they had like a set of owls that was into like this. They had a stand set up in the square, and there was a bunch of owls, and you could pay them like £5 and go hold a owl on your arm, whatever. And they put this big old glove. So I went and found the biggest freaking owl I could, and I was like, I want to hold that one. So I got this picture with, I think it's Zoe or whatever the owl's name was, but the thing was as big as I was.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That is cool.
Everyone else was like, I'm not paying £5. That's stupid. And I'm like, when do you ever get a hold of an owl? Like, this is cool.
That is cool.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was a good time there. I really enjoyed it. We went and played soccer in the fields there, whatever. I learned what stinging nettles were. That was a whole experience.
I bet you did.
I was, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I was there the same time. I want to say I was in the same group with Sister Ott, and she came and did was on your podcast, and so we were in the same group. I don't know anything about bananas. She's talking about banana. I was like, I don't know anything about this. I was not in.
That was quite a unique story. I'd never heard anything like that before until she told it. I don't know. I would never think to torture the sisters by taking their fruit away, but whatever.
I don't know. It was interesting. It was, I don't know. We had a good time there. I don't remember how long we were there, but then we went ahead and caught the train up to Scotland, and when we got to Scotland, like, I don't know, I just remember being sick on the train because the train's going, you sit down in the seat and the train starts going and you're going backwards really fast, and I got sick. Sick from it. Like, I didn't like that at all.
Interesting.
Also on the flight over there, that was like one of the first times I've flown on an airplane. And so like when we left Arizona, I jump onto this plane. I'm alone on a plane. I'm first time in an airport. I don't really know what I'm doing or where I'm going, but I'm going to figure this out, And Yeah, the plane took off and just hits a little bit of turbulence. And my dad would always talk about it. He'd say, "Yeah, when you hit the turbulence, you just throw your arms up in the air and have a good old experience with it." Turbulence, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't die, don't die. I'm like going on a mission. Don't kill me now, please. I'm trying to do your work." And it was a whole thing. I don't know. I had a 7-hour layover in Atlanta, and that was such a long layover. And so I was there, I think, 4 hours in Atlanta before I saw another missionary, and then one shows up, and then it was a little while longer, and another one shows up. And I think about 3 hours before we took off, this wall of missionaries comes walking down. The plane from Utah had just landed, and this wall of missionaries comes walking through the airport. And they're all bragging it up. That was so cool. The Spirit's God so strong. And you're just like, I don't know what's happening. I was just happy not to be alone anymore. I kind of want to backtrack one more step, actually. The last thing my dad told me before I left, you're hugging the family and everybody and saying your goodbyes, and gets to my dad and I give him the hug. And the last thing he says to me is, "You're not welcome home for 2 years." And you're like, okay, well, yeah, of course I'm not, because I'm going to go out there, I'm going to stick out the whole thing, and so be it. But then when I got there, that changed everything.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, Scotland, President Frederick was the first mission president. I had President Frederick exactly half the mission, and then President Griffiths the second half, and it was split exactly in half with them.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so I got my trainer, Elder Slater, and we went up he was from England, and we, ended up catching another, like a 4-hour train ride up to Aberdeen. So after I got off the train, I got back on another freaking train, and off to Aberdeen we go. I was so done with trains by the time we got there. I'm like, I don't want this anymore.
Did you ever figure out that you needed to sit forward like you're driving a car for it to be a better experience, or was it always bad?
No, it got better. I just got used to it. But at first it was like, the first couple trips, I was like, I don't care for this at all.
Oh, man,
I want to say I did learn forward facing was better than backwards facing. But like I said, it got better over time.
Right. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So Aberdeen's really gray. They everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's the gray city," and I'm like, I don't know, it's just a city as far as I'm concerned. And that was the first time for me being in a big city, short of like a trip to Phoenix or something like that. I mean, it's the first time I spent considerable time in a city, like that.
Yeah.
And so we show up at the apartment, I'm all excited, and the zone leaders show up, and I don't remember names of most anybody, and so I'm probably not going to share most of the names of people on the mission. I remember the experiences. The first thing they do is that, "Yay, welcome, Elder. We're so happy to have you." And then they turn around and they open up my suitcase and start going through everything. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And they're just like, "We're, looking for contraband, essentially, and if you had anything in your bag that wasn't exactly approved on the, I don't know, the wherever the approvals are."
Like the white handbook stuff or whatever they talked about.
Yeah, basically, if you have an extra CD that you're not supposed to have, if you have an extra book that your mom thought you would like, but it's not mission approved, then, it's gone. You need to send it back home. That kind of stuff. And so that's how it started. And it just started off with, "Hey, we're going to lay down the ground rules. You're here to work, and we expect you to get out there." And I don't know, it just wasn't at all what I expected,
Yeah,
it was interesting. First time I went to the grocery store, I had changed over what money I had into coinage, and so I got over there and I walk up, and I don't even know how this coinage even works. I'm trying to read all these things, and the lady's like, "Hey, it's got to be like $3.75 or something like that." And I'm just looking at this stuff, and I threw this wad of cash on the table, and I'm like, "Can you just, what do I owe you? I don't even know what to pay you."
I think we all had that experience.
Yeah, we all had some variation of that.
They definitely didn't teach us that in the MTC for any of us that came over. Gosh.
Right. And, they had gone over several times, hey, don't carry too much money. You don't want to get robbed. And so here I am in the big city. I'm like, I don't want to get robbed. I'm not going to carry much, but I don't even know what a lot is here. Like, they're talking to me in quids and this says pounds and I don't know what's happening.
Oh, man.
It was a whole thing. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. They took me out to go get sausage rolls and have some squash. Like that was the and like squash is a vegetable, not a drink. So I don't understand how this is happening. And I don't know what's in a sausage roll, but it's definitely not sausage. Like this is, I don't know what's wrong with this place over here, but we're gonna figure it out.
That's pretty funny, Daphne. You're the first person that has mentioned the term squash.
I forgot about that.
I had completely forgot about it until this moment in time. So, well, kudos to you. You just checked a box on our S.E.M podcast bingo board.
Right?
Squash.
I forgot they called it that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so then, we have to go get bus passes, and I'm so confused about what's happening because they're talking about you have to have zones in the bus pass, and I'm like, I don't understand, like, I've never had to use a bus pass, like the bus just shows up and you jump on. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was different. So I don't know. I went with him, I want to say 6 weeks. And then somewhere in there, Sister Ott talked about the car got taken away from them.
Yeah, I remember that.
In Aberdeen. Yeah, well, I was in Aberdeen and I was the one that ended up getting the car. And the sisters were super upset that we got the car. And I was just excited to drive over there. And I felt really bad. Like, I would have given the sisters back their car. I did want to drive, but like, I wanted to give them back their car. Like, I didn't try to take it from them. I didn't ask for the car. I don't remember why it got taken, but yeah, really. So it was this whole thing and I felt so bad. And I don't know, I remember at one point, I want to say the assistants came over and we jumped in the car. And I'm pretty sure I know which one it is, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I remember it was one of the craziest drives of my life. Like, we got in and they just start tearing through the town like it's nothing. And I was just like, I don't know what's happening, but we're going to die on this trip. And like, the cars are super close. They're driving super fast. And I'm just kind of freaking out. And then like at one point we got to a roundabout and the missionary just looks back and goes, America, and he jumps over the roundabout and just right through the center of it and just keeps on going. And I was just like, oh my God, we're going to die.
Oh my goodness.
And, yeah, crazy things missionaries do.
I remember the statement America and that story, but I'm trying to remember who said it now, so I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. I don't want to share a whole lot, but yeah. I was in the car just freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die.
Crazy missionaries.
I don't know. Yeah, it was fun. There was also like one of the assistant is either zone leader or assistant. I think they were an assistant, but they had just this unique ability. Okay, they could turn around and walk up to any field where the clovers were growing in the grass, and they could just pull out a 4-leaf clover anywhere.
Really?
I want to say it was Jeremiah Johnson, but I'm not quite sure about that. Anyway. Okay. He could walk up and he could just pull a 4-leaf clover out of anywhere, and it was crazy. So we'd go up to him, we'd say, "Hey, what's the secret to finding a 4-leaf clover?" He'd say, "Oh, well, you just gotta, there's a couple rules. The first one, you gotta look, don't look at the 3-leaf clovers. You gotta look at the 4-leaf." And I'm like, "Well, that's stupid." And I don't know. There's a bunch of other rules. They're more likely to grow where you don't expect them to grow. So if there's a green field, it's harder to find. But if you find like a area with dirt, that's easier to find them. I don't know. There's a whole set of rules there. Anyway, so now I'm on a set hunt. I'm going to find a 4-leaf clover by the end of my mission. And we were like all determined we're going to find 4-leaf clovers. And while I was still in the area, I know I found 2 4-leaf clovers while I was there.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I was pretty happy. I still have them. I laminated them, pressed them flat, laminated them, and they're, I think, in my scriptures somewhere.
That's fantastic. Cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Man.
Yeah. Well, then we had this.
I was going to say, I know I looked for them and I didn't have the patience to find it. So, nor the training, it sounds like, from the expert.
That was it. Yeah, exactly. Right. That we had the expert. So then it was really funny. This one missionary, Elder Humphreys, he was so frustrated, and I think you guys have been talking to him. Anyway, he was so frustrated that he couldn't find a 4-leaf clover. We come walking up to this these apartments one day, and he's just like, "Elders, I'm gonna find a 4-leaf clover," and I'm just like, "Okay, we're gonna share all of this, you know." And he's determined he's gonna find one. We're like, "Okay, well, when you find one," he gets so frustrated. He says, "You know what? I'm going to pray right now. I'm going to pray and God's going to show me a 4-leaf clover." And we're like, "Elder, that's not how prayers work. Like, come on, you know, it's a thing." He's like, no, if I want it bad enough, he'll show me." And we're like, "No way. It doesn't even happen." So anyway, he turns around, he folds his arm. "Heavenly Father, I want, please help me find a 4-leaf clover. I've been working hard." And he ends it, you know, and we're like, "Okay." And right then he goes, "Oh," and he bends down and pulls up a 5-leaf clover right there in front of us.
Oh my gosh.
And we're just like, "What? This is not how this works."
Man, he found the best one of them all, it sounds like.
I know. It was like a 5 or 6-leaf clover, and I was just like, "This is not how this works."
That's amazing.
But yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fun. We had a good time. It was also hard. Oh well, I guess I should back up real quick. The first week I got there, we had, oh my god, I got so many stories popping into my head right now. When we first got there, there was a girl that was getting ready to get baptized. Okay, and I didn't know anything of it other than she had a date scheduled, and the missionary came out, and I came in, and off we go. And so we show up at the church for this baptism. I've never done a baptism before. I've never been a part of any of this. I don't know. I got a lot of things going through my head right now.
You're good.
Yeah, we showed up and the hot water heater wasn't working. And so we go, "Okay, what are we going to do?" So we're throwing these massive pots on the stove, but it's an electric stove. And so we're trying to boil water to see if we can offset it. And it just was cold. It came time we were throwing buckets of water into the thing, trying to fill up the font. And I mean, we got it done, but it was a total disaster.
Yeah, that's been a regular part of our conversations is, for whatever reason, whoever was responsible at the church did not fill up the font to make sure the hot water worked on a regular basis. And
either that or scalding.
Yes, that's true.
You gotta look at them and say, "You know that warm feeling you're feeling inside? Well, it's not from the freaking water. The water's too cold."
There you go. Oh gosh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a mess. Yeah, so we had that one. I quickly learned though when we got there that, you know, you heard about like there was the Glasgow hammer was a thing. It's hammer time. Everybody would be all excited about it, and that was a thing. And so they'd come over and they would just, you know, the leaders would come over and just start chewing you out. And I've just never experienced that before. Like I don't know. It wasn't what a mission was supposed to be. I'm just going to say right now, there was nothing Christ-like about anything that they did. But they would come over and they would say a bunch of things, you know, and like, what are you even doing here? You're wasting your time. Do you even believe in God? Do you believe in Christ? Like, you're wasting your time. You're wasting God's time, my time. You know, you're wasting God's money, your money. Like, what are you even doing here? Go home. You don't belong here. Like, what are you doing? You know, if you didn't provide numbers that were big enough, and, you know, God didn't put you here because you were, God put you here because there's somebody that you could baptize. If you couldn't baptize somebody, you wouldn't be here. You'd be somewhere else. You know, God's leaders are appointed. They're, you know, they have discernment. And the only reason you would be put here is if there was somebody you could baptize. So, you know, when we come in, we don't have anybody going through the funnel of people, right? You don't have anybody going through and they turn around and say, "Hey, what's your goals for the year?" And or for the transfers, and you look at it and you're like, "We have nothing here. Nobody's coming through." I think I don't see a baptism happening in 6 weeks. I think it would take maybe a little longer, but so maybe next transfers, if we can get somebody coming through, sure, but right now I don't see that happening. So we reported 0, and you don't have faith. You're too prideful, and they just come over and start ripping into you. And pride was like a really big thing. Pride is such a trigger word with me nowadays, like, because they would just get in your face. And they're like, it's pride, Elda, it's pride. The only reason you can't is because you have pride, and you're just like, I'm just trying to do it. And they're like, you're talking back to me right now? That's pride. And if you try to, and if you want to sit there and argue with them, well, that's because you have pride. Because if you're faithful, you would just go out and do it. And
that's not how it works.
I don't know. There was right. And so you want to go home, because you're like, whatever this is, it's not a mission. I know what a mission looks like because I just spent 3 years every day with the missionaries out there. This is not what a mission is supposed to look like, and so then they come in, they're just slamming you with that. And, my dad's words are ringing through my head. You're not welcome home for 2 years. Well, where am I going to go? I have nowhere to go. I'm just stuck here.
Yeah.
So be it. We're going to just stick it out. So I learned to stick things out.
I'm sure you did.
It's both good and bad. So that we got a lot of that. It got to a point that, if you didn't provide good enough numbers, hey, you know what? I want you to call us every hour on the hour and start reporting your numbers because we need your numbers to come up. And so you start trying to, every hour you're on the phone with them. And there was one point, one day for sure, they called and said, we want you to call us every 10 minutes. And
oh my gosh.
So every 10 minutes, you're calling them going, no, we don't have anybody. Like, why? It was so numbers based, and it had nothing to do with the people, and so there was a lot of people that were, I know Sister Hot talked about it, that there was a lot of people that were being pushed through that never should have been baptized because they weren't ready for it. They had and there was some pushback from the ward, and some of it I think was on the ward and some of it was on the missionaries. The missionaries were trying to push people through for baptism. The ward wants people to come through for baptism, but if you don't have that connection, who are they going to stick to after the missionary leaves? And so they had testimonies of missionaries, but not of the church. And they like the missionaries. The missionaries are good. They're fun. They make me feel included. They make me feel appreciated and loved. And so now, sure, I'll go join whatever it is you do. But if the rest of the ward's not there to back them up, of course they're going to fall apart.
Yep.
But of course the ward doesn't, is skeptical on helping them because you're just pushing people through.
Yeah.
And I really think if it would have became about the people and not about the numbers, it would have made a bigger difference.
Yeah. Man, that's so challenging.
Yeah. So
we've also talked with some missionaries who are in leadership positions about how they got anything done in that time because they're just getting phone calls 6 times an hour. Like, how are you accomplishing anything? Are you teaching lessons? Are you were they sitting in their flats just waiting for phone calls? I mean, if I
don't know how they did it.
If I was a leader at that point, I would be like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't need to babysit everybody. I'm here to work just as much as anybody else.
I don't know how they did it because you're I know they're calling all these people up like this, and I can barely talk to enough people before they're calling me again, and then you show up to this district meeting and they're like, oh yeah, we just brought in 4 new investigators. And by the way, 3 of them have a baptism date. And you're like, what is the difference? I don't understand how this is working, but they're like, oh yeah, Elder so-and-so, he's got this amazing story. And you're like, okay, cool. And he gets up, hey, so we were driving down the road and I saw this lady, she tripped over, smashed her face into the side of a car. And I'm like, you know what? She needs to be baptized. And they jump out of the car and you're like, I don't even understand what's happening right now.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, it was hard. There was also, I don't know, Scotland was such a weird place. It was just not at all what I was expecting, because I'm in this big city all of a sudden, like, I don't even know what the whole group, the brays and the bagpipes and everything else is about because none of that's happening. Like, this is, you're just in the city and you're there trying to read your scriptures and do your personal study. You look out the window and guys pissing on the fence across the street, as he's walking home drunk from the night before. And you're just like, This place is so wild. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I got pictures of a guy pissing on a fence across the street. I'm like, look at this guy, like middle of the city, and he's just. Oh, it was. I don't know. It's crazy.
That's about as different from Pima, Arizona, as you can get. For sure.
It really is. Oh my gosh, it definitely is.
Goodness.
And then like I don't know. I really started to appreciate other cultures while I was there, though. I know that like my dad gave me a blessing when I was a baby that like said, I'd go on a mission and I needed to not be racist or something along those lines because I would need it when I went on my mission. So I'm like, oh yeah, and I don't know, I feel like most of my life I've been pretty open to a lot of people, a lot of different kind of backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
But we get there and we're teaching a lot of people from Africa, and so you show up into their flat and they're like, oh yeah, and they start feeding their baby, and I don't know, like all kinds of stuff starts happening, and it is not what I'm expecting. It's different. Also in Scotland, they had big dogs. I don't like big dogs, okay? And like they had these dogs that are like the size of a horse, and you get into these elevators to start going up and down apart, and you get into these things and the door shuts and you're like, we're about to drop into the depths of hell right now because this elevator's so rickety. And so you're like holding on for dear life. It smells like piss because somebody peed in the corner over there, and you're just like holding on for dear life that this thing isn't going to drop into oblivion. The door opens and half a horse comes walking in. You're like, oh, I'm about to get eaten. Like, it's just a weird it's such a weird place. Like, I don't know, I like it's just different.
I can agree.
Yeah.
So how long were you in Aberdeen, Daphne?
I was there for 4.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was a good experience. The second I was there for 3 months with Elder Slater, and then I got a new companion. It was Elder Hawks. I don't know, something. Anyway, Elder H. Anyway, so yeah, sure, we'll go with it. Hawks is Hawks. Anyway, so he shows up, and he was in the same group as me and Sister Ott, and so we were two fresh missionaries, didn't know what we were doing, trying to walk and do all this stuff. And I don't know, I learned a lot with him. Had some good experiences. Had one weird experience though. We were somewhere, and I know, like, I've told this story very little. Okay, we had just left a member's house for dinner, and this guy. No, we left for dinner. We end up going back to the flat, and right as we got there, something weird happened. All of a sudden, Elder Hawk stopped breathing, like just stopped breathing, And we're like, "Are you choking? Like, what's going on?" And he just can't breathe. And I'm kind of freaking out, like, "Oh my gosh, we need to call ambulance or something because like he's about to die. He can't breathe, and you're trying to figure out what's going on." And anyway, the mission companion looks at me, or other missionaries, because I think the zone leaders or district leaders were with us, and they said, "Oh, well, what you need to do is give him a blessing." And nowadays, I look at that and I'm like, "How crazy is this?" But we're gonna offer him a blessing instead of calling them an ambulance. Anyway, so he turns around and he says, "We're gonna go ahead. So you're gonna have to forgive me. I don't remember how these all work, okay? But."
You're good.
I want to say somebody anoints and someone blesses, right?
Yep.
So other missionary anointed, because I didn't have much experience with blessings at all. And they said, well, you need to give the blessing, you're his companion. And I'm like, okay. So we get in there, and I remember sitting there going, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and offer this blessing. And you start it off, you say the things you're supposed to say, and then it gets to the blessing part. And I remember getting this prompting like, hey, you need to command him to breathe. And I'm like, we'd just been listening, some of the things we would do on the mission is you download talks from general authorities, whatever. And we'd just been listening to one. It was ancient, but they're talking about like intelligences and how much faith does it take to command an intelligence to obey you, and stuff like that. I don't know. So anyway, I'm thinking about this and I'm like, how much faith do I have to have right now to command him to breathe? And like, he's just going to breathe? Like, no. I can't do that. I don't have that kind of faith, it's just me as a simple person from little podunk town doesn't matter freak. You can't do that. Anyway, I get that, stronger. You need to command him to breathe. And so I said, Elder Hawks, I command you to breathe. And right then he just all of a sudden could breathe again. And I was just like, I don't know what just happened, but I don't.
How?
I've never experienced anything like that,
Yeah.
It was like the second time I ever gave a blessing. So
oh my goodness.
What do you do with that? That's crazy. There's a lot of things in my life that happen I don't have a lot of answers for. Truth be told, I don't know where I fit with religion and all that anymore, but there's a few instances in my life I don't have answers. I don't know why that happened that day.
Yeah.
But it did. It did. And it was a real thing. Anyway, we struggled there in Aberdeen for that. And then I got transferred out of the area. But I was like, okay, well, it's getting time for calls. I've been here for 4.5 months. Hopefully I get a leave. And the only thing I knew is I've been told lots of stories about the Glasgow Hammer. And I did not want to go to Glasgow if this is the crap they're pulling in Aberdeen, because like, what the heck? And so anyway, I get the call. Hey, Elder Schiffler, how are you doing? And I'm all excited about it. You're called to go to Glasgow. And I'm like, well, crap. You're going to open up an area with Elder Grantham. And I'm like, okay. So I end up in Paisley, actually. But, same thing, just different side of the city or different side of the river. Yeah, so I go down to Paisley. And first thing I notice is, oh, my gosh, there's color everywhere. Like, it's
not gray anymore. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't know, I liked Paisley. It was a really, really neat place. So I get down there. Oh, and by the way, it was also like October, November by the time I got down there. Okay. Coming from Arizona, I've heard it a couple times. Okay. I didn't come with a coat at all. Like, I didn't come with one because I knew Arizona coats weren't going to be good enough. And so I didn't even bother to bring one. So I didn't have one at all. So the winds start blowing in off the North Sea. It was freaking cold. And I go over to a member's house one day and they were from Utah and they hand me this Carhartt jacket and they go, here, Elder, just keep this one. And I'm like, no, I can't take your jacket. They're like, trust us, we're good. We make good money. We work in the oil industry. Don't even worry about it. So they gave me a jacket. And I kept that thing the rest of my 2 years. Like it was a good jacket.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Paisley. That was an interesting place. Like we're down there and like next thing you know, first thing in the morning or late at night, you start hearing a bunch of like flutes playing, whatever. And here they come through the street and they're banging on some drums and just beating the crap out of these drums. And we were told that the drummers are taught to, if they're Protestant, that they're taught to pretend the Pope's face is on the side of the drum and just to beat the crap out of it. And if you break the drum skin, they'll buy you a new one. They'll sit there and tell them, oh yeah, I'll give you 20 quid if you break the head of the drum because you just smashed the Pope's face in, but then it costs them 100 for a new skin.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so they come down there. So I was like, this is really cool. Like it feels like Revolutionary War kind of stuff, they're just coming down. It was cool. Some interesting stuff happened while we were there. We did find somebody that we worked with. She ended up getting baptized, and then shortly after she got baptized, her dad chased us off and didn't want us to be around her anymore. He didn't like it, and I don't understand why, because the current whatever, I think she was hooked on heroin, but so we got it, was helping her get off that. I don't understand why that was such a big thing, but it was a really big deal. Don't be around her anymore. We don't want her. We don't want you guys around anymore. So, Elder Grantham was fun. I liked him as a companion, but he also had a little bit of a temper. He'd been in a couple fights growing up, whatever. And so if somebody wanted to stand up to him, he didn't have any problem holding his own against him on the street. And so every now and again, I'd be like, "Oh, Elder, you're making me really nervous. Like, let's go this way, Elder. Let's go this way." And so we go on splits one day. He was the district leader. I ended up being district leader companion most of my mission. So from then, pretty well the rest of the time, I was district leader companion, right? So anyway, he goes on splits, goes to the other area. I get left behind. Other elder comes with me, and we're out just walking around. And I remember it got late one night. It's getting dark because the sun, sets way early in the wintertime. And so anyway, it gets close to the 9 o'clock. We need to be back in our flat. And so you're walking by, and we knew that our flat was on the other side of this park. All we got to do is cut through the park. And the elder says, "I don't think that's a good idea." And I'm like, "Come on, Elder, it's just on the other side of the park there." And so anyway, we start going through the park, and a bunch of NEDs found us in the park. And so we're like, "Oh, crap." So we're trying to get our way out of the park as quick as we can, and we're running back, whatever. And they caught up. And right as we got to the gate, the other elder that was with me decided to stop running, turn around, and offer him a Book of Mormon. And so he turns around and he's like, "Hey, would you like to hear a message about Christ?" And the guy walks up and just punches him right in the face. And I was just
my Lord.
Like, let's go. So we got out of it, and I felt really bad because he just got hit for it, and it was my fault. And, yeah, that missionary was fun. That missionary was fun. There's other stories that I know he told about, like his past, but that's his story. I'll let him tell that. But I don't know. I really liked him. Let me see. While we were there, it started to get really cold. Wintertime came in, it was snowing, stuff like that. And I learned that spider webs freeze, and that's a thing. And like, I've never seen it since I came back, but I mean, how cool is it? Like, I thought it was so you'd have the iron gates or iron fences, whatever, and the spider webs would freeze on it. You could run your finger through them and they wouldn't stick to you, And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I'd be clearing fence after fence with these things. Like, poor spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really cool thing. Yeah, we did Thanksgiving while we were there, and I don't remember. I've never done a Thanksgiving before. I know we spent like our month's worth of food or months of food money, whatever, on that Thanksgiving meal. And I was just like, this is so much money to spend on one meal. But, the elder looks around and goes, "Hey, what do you guys like for Thanksgiving? What do you like?" And we made sure we had all of it available. And so it was a fun meal. I also decided I was going to make some salsa while we were there. And I remember I was making the salsa, and I just wanted some chilies to go in the salsa, and we go down to Asda to go get some chilies, and like, there's no chilies. It's really hard to find chilies. And all I could, you can't find anything in cans or bread. And I finally found some like miniature bell pepper things that weren't bell peppers. They were a chili, but it said Scotch bonnets. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but if Scotland has chili, sure, let's do it. So I buy these things. I'm chopping these things up and just throw them in there. Sure, why not? 3 Scotch bonnets. Why not? Let's do it. So you throw these things in the salsa. You're like, yeah, sure, whatever. We're eating the salsa. We're just like, holy crap, that's a hot salsa. But, if the other elders are eating at the English missionaries, I'll take a bite. They just start crying. And it's like, this is ungodly. Like, why would you do this? And I'm like, we're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. We keep eating. It's like we're sweating up all kinds. I just found out like a year ago, Scotch bonnet's like a freaking habanero. It's the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what I was putting in all this salsa, and I had no idea, because it's funny because I saw it and I was like, funny, it looks like a habanero, but it doesn't say that, so it must not be.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So we ate a lot of hot salsa, like really hot salsa on the mission.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. this companion I had, he was really big, and anyway, he had fun picking on me. He was nice. We got along really well, but like he would pick on me, and he did this thing. I don't know what he would do, but he'd take his elbow and just like hit you in the back with his elbow. When he did it, he'd send you sprawling across the front of a car, and you're just like, what the heck? And I don't know how he did it. Just boom, and there you go. And so there's so many cars. I just went flying across the hood of these cars, and I'm just like, what the heck? So I remember one day, like it was snowing and everything, and I was just like, I'm gonna get him back. Cars cut, there's a car parked on the side there. So we're coming by, and I just boom, and I hit him with my elbow, and I sent him across the hood of this car. I'm like, it worked. And he go, oh, I'm gonna get you. And he starts chasing me, and I go running down the thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy can run. I don't know. We had a lot of fun. While I was there, it was Paisley area. The area I was in was called Renfrew, and then the other part of it was in Johnston, right? And Johnston didn't have a ward, but Paisley did, and they combined the two. Anyway, so I went on splits down with the missionaries down to Johnston, okay? And one of the there's a couple of the missionaries that told me about this sister that's down in the Johnston area, and they said, you have to go see her. And I'm like, okay, why? And they're like, trust me, she's got a unique spiritual gift. And I'm like, okay, well, gift of tongues, same crap that we hear from everybody else. Like, sure, whatever, They go, no. She can tell you the worst thing you've ever done in your life. And I'm like, what kind of spiritual gift is that? Like, is that even a thing? Like, I'm pretty sure that's not listed in the scriptures anywhere. Maybe discernment, but like, what the heck, And I thought that's for like bishops and crap. Like, how is this for? No, Elder, she totally can. She totally can. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. Anyway, we go down there, and they're like, we're gonna go check out this sister, and I'm like, okay, let's do this, And the thing is like, I never told anybody about how I felt growing up, okay? We go there to her house, and we knock on the door. She answers and lets us in. And the other elder kind of looks at me, winks. He's like, hey, I'm going to go use the toilet, because, they never ask for the bathroom. It's always the toilet. Anyway, I'm going to use the toilet. So he goes to there, and I go into the living room, sit on the couch, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just kind of sitting there being quiet. And she looks across the room at me, and she says, Elder Shiflett, you like to cross-dress. And I'm like, what is happening right now? No, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. I don't know what you're talking about. She says, oh, it's okay. It's a safe space. Don't even worry about it. If you ever need, and I'm like, no, it's not even a thing. I don't even know what you're talking about. She's like, and I mean, it was, but I'm not going to tell her that I'm on a mission, Yeah. Elder, it's fine. It's fine. It's a safe space. Don't even worry about it. If you ever just need, I got you. And I'm like, it's not a thing. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, I get it. Just know the offer's there. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. Which, looking back, why would I ever say thank you if it wasn't a thing? But I'm like, whatever. Anyway, we go through, teach the lesson, we leave, whatever, that's it. And like, that stuck with me, though. That's weird. Like, who knows that? And they said, trust me, she knows the weirdest things. And I'm like, I never told anybody. Nobody knew about this. I never told anybody, okay?
Do you remember her name?
Yeah, but I don't want to share it. I can tell you afterwards.
Okay. Because I served in Johnston for a 6-week period, and I'd be curious to know who it is.
I'm still in contact with her, and there's a good chance she may listen to this, so I'm just not even going to share. It's all good. My place to share.
That's fine. I appreciate that, Daphne. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Like, that stuck with me. Anyway, the rest of the time, I know I froze while I was there. Oh my gosh, I was freezing. And I didn't have much in the way of clothes. And so I had like a pair of sweatpants and I would wear sweatpants under my suit, and then the sweatpants started stretching out, and so my sweatpants would start like coming out the bottom of my suit while I'm there. I look so trashy. I looked like this kid that did not belong there at all.
Whatever it takes to stay warm.
That was the point.
fabulous.
Yeah. What
Oh
I
my
ended up
God.
learning, I ended up buying a heater for my bed. And after that, I finally could start sleeping, because at night I wasn't sleeping and I was tired all the time. And I learned it was because I was cold at night, you know? And later I learned that if I wore socks, it would keep me warm, and I can regulate my body temperature through that. And so here we are, however many years later, 14, 15, 16 years later, I still wear socks every day. I wear them to bed. Drove my wife nuts. She couldn't understand it. I always wear socks, and it's a thing, and I learned it from there.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot else that happened while we were there. I got transferred out of the area 3 months later, and other than I did Christmas there, I know I had Christmas there. Got to call the family, and it was nice to get to talk to them. I got transferred from there to Glasgow, and I'm like, great, now I really am in Glasgow. I don't know, Glasgow. I really liked it, actually, but it took me a while because I was so scared of the hammer. I actually saw the Glasgow hammer a couple times. Like, they brought it to a couple meetings, and I'm like, good. Like, they had a physical hammer they would bring to meetings, you know, check it out. Here's the hammer. They'd bring it out, and they're like, it's hammer time. And you're like, oh, crap. You know, and it was a thing. And they would just, every meeting, we're going to chew you out. We're going to rip you up, you know, and there was no there was no reason for it. And I quickly learned that if you can't lead with love and you have to sit there and yell at people, then you're not really a leader. You're just leading by fear, and nothing about that's Christ-like, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so I got there. I was with Elder Kelly. He was from Arizona. He was from Round Valley. And it was kind of fun because he played basketball, and turned out we'd been at a few of the same games together, like growing up, and we had no idea. And so now here we are, companions. We were also in the same group with Hawks and Ott, and yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so we were all from the same group. I really liked him. He just had a fire burning inside him. He was really good about how he talked with people, and just being able to convey messages, deep sympathy, that kind of stuff. Somewhere during the time with him, I realized that I was living my dad's mission. I was trying to live my dad's mission. I was trying to have the same experiences my dad had on his mission, and it wasn't mine. And so when I realized that, I kind of stopped trying to do everything he would have done, and just start doing what I wanted to do and felt like needed to be done. And it changed a lot for me. The mission became more personal. I worked a lot harder because, again, you're not trying to create some false event. You're just creating your own events. Yeah. So I was with him for, I think, 6 weeks. I found in Scotland, or in Glasgow specifically, there was a lot of people that were refugees from Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and such. And I met this one guy, Muhammad, and he was such a good guy, and he was from Afghanistan. There was another guy, Hamid, I think was his name. Anyway, I got permission from mission president, because I was getting really frustrated. There's all these people that would have been solid investigators, and as soon as they saw that, hey, by the way, they're from the Middle East, it didn't matter anymore. You know, oh, you're Muslim. Oh, well, have a good day. You know, and I was just like, what? I don't understand this. Are they not God's children? What? And they go, well, you have to have permission from the first presidency to baptize them. It's a whole mess, you know. And I'm just like, but aren't they God's children? Like, I don't understand why we're not trying and why we're not pushing and doing all this, you know? So I talked to the mission president, got permission to start learning Arabic. So I picked up an Arabic Book of Mormon and would just sit there, and, you know, I couldn't take extra time for it, but I would just do a little bit with what I had. And I would go side by side, Book of Mormon, and just sit there, try to figure it out. And then also, when I would find people on the street, I would just start talking to them, and just have conversations. And so I learned really quick how to say hello in a bunch of different languages, and how to start having conversations. And that's something that's carried with me today. Like the other day, this is going to sound dumb. The other day in the bar, a bunch of guys came in, and they all spoke Arabic, and I could still sit there and have a nice conversation with the guys in Arabic, and it, meant a whole lot to them.
That's amazing.
And I learned, and it's just stupid little lines that I learned on my mission, but it still sticks with you, and it's really cool. I learned that if you will take just a little bit of time and the slightest bit of effort to meet somebody where they're at, right? If they're from a different culture, ask them about their culture. If they speak a different language, ask them about that language, right? Because they come from a different experience. They know different things than you do. And it doesn't make one right or wrong. It's just different, But if you'll put the slightest bit of effort into it, like, they appreciate it so much. And all of a sudden, like, I could find people and I could talk to people so much, and they wanted to learn more. And it was simple. I read a talk, and I don't remember who it was from. I think it was a BYU professor, but he talked about the similarities between Mormonism and Islam. And so I would go up to go talk to these people, and I say, oh, salam alaikum. You get into, you tell them you're from the church, and they go, oh, okay, and they're religious. And then you go, hey, let's talk about family, because family is something that's really important between you and between me. And all of a sudden they're like, yes, of course. And you're like, oh, hey, by the way, did you know there's a prophet still here? And they're like, what? Oh my goodness, it's amazing. And they want to have these conversations. And so most of the people I taught in Glasgow never spoke very little English, if any at all, and it was, I don't know. I found a love for them and their culture, and you show up and they're always eating something, and it's the best freaking food. And you show up. Yeah, it is. And you show up, and, they got the yellow rice and whatever that is. But, it's Iraqi rice, and they're like, oh yeah, and we're eating this. And you're like, what is it? They're like, it's goat. And I'm like, I didn't know we eat goat. Sure, let's do it. And it was, I don't know, it was fun. And afterwards they're like, oh yeah, it's hashish. And I'm like, no, I blew some bubbles this morning, I'm good. Like, I don't know, it was interesting. I really grew to like the community and the different cultures. While I was there, I started keeping a tally of all the different countries I spoke to people from. Wow. And I want to say by the end of the mission, I spoke to people from 176 different countries. And it just, it really was, and you could, I don't know, it was, to me, the thing about the blessing as a kid came true, because you can't be racist. I would need it for my mission. And here I am talking to people from all these different countries, and they were easier to talk to than the Scots were. I mean, the Scots were easy to talk to. I had no problem there. They're funny. Oh my gosh, they're funny. But like, it just, being able to talk about religion, though, I was able to get into a lot more if they weren't from there. Mm-hmm. Even though they were there, it was nice. Yeah. I had a thought in my head and I just lost it.
Who is your next companion after Preston Kelly?
Oh no, it wasn't Preston Kelly. It was
someone else.
Yeah, different Kelly. I can't remember his first name.
Oh, Derek.
Anyway. Derek. Yes, it was Derek Kelly.
That makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it was Derek Kelly. He was in the same group as me. Anyway, after him, I ended up getting, I want to say, Justin Whitehead. He had just left Elder Harper. And so he came in to be district leader. And I really liked him. He taught me a lot. He worked really hard. He took everything real serious, but he was, oh my gosh, he's funny. He's quick-witted, and he can talk to anybody about anything. And I expressed that admiration to him one day. I was just like, you can talk to everybody. It's so great. And anyway, he told me, he says, Elder, it's important in life to know one thing about everything and everything about one thing. It makes you an expert in that field that you learn, everything about, but you don't want to be a know-it-all. But it's important also to be able to talk to anybody. And so he's like, you need to know something about everything, so that way you can have intelligent conversations with anybody at any time. And I don't know, that stuck with me. And so I've worked really hard on that. And I talk to everybody. Now the trick's getting me to shut up. Yeah, I don't know. It's great. It was, I learned a lot from him. He was funny. We would go over to Sister M's house. There was games that we would play there, and he was so creative in the games he would play and stuff. I don't know. It was a lot of fun with him. I was with him for 3 months.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't remember who was after that. I feel like I missed somebody.
All right.
I think there was somebody before Whitehead. I can't remember. There's somebody
a lot
else
of
there.
blanks as these things go along. Like,
Yeah.
we'll talk to somebody and they'll know, but
yeah,
it's all
exactly.
good.
I'm trying to remember because there was somebody before Whitehead. I really liked him. I don't remember.
It'll come back to you.
I'm really bad.
I'm sure it will.
So. I hope so. Anyway, so that was the Spring Boy ward that we were in. And I was in that ward for 15 months. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was in the one area for 9 months in Shettleston. And I just remember it was a crazy area. People drank every night. We were right there on the main street. We're close to the Celtic Stadium. And so you have to pay attention when games were going to be, make sure that you're not wearing the wrong colors on game days, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. We also learned, I don't know. Oh my gosh. While I was with Kelly, we, about like when there's NEDs coming down the street, you have to make sure that you're safe, And so if there's one coming down the street, it wasn't a big deal, just walk past them. But if there's a group, cross the street to make sure that you're safe, And I remember one time we turned the corner leaving one of the high rises. And as we turned the corner to leave, there was a group and they were right on us. We didn't have a chance to cross the street. And I just remember my heart sunk and I'm like, oh, we're about to, have some issues. And I remember we walked right through the center of them and they never saw us. And like, it was more than it wasn't just like, oh, they walked around us. Like, they never saw us. They didn't know we were there. And that was a really interesting thing for me. We also had this crazy not investigator. She was a recent I know she was crazy. Oh my gosh, she was crazy. I got so many stories coming into mind right now. Anyway, so she would come with us though. She was a recent convert, and she would come with us sometimes to help contact people on the street. Right. So we're going down the street, and I know, like, we were walking one time, and there's a bunch of NEDs coming down the other side of the street, right? And we're watching this group, and I'm just kind of keeping my eye out for them, make sure you're safe. And all of a sudden, they pull out a bunch of knives out of their pockets or wherever they were keeping their knives, and they all just start stabbing each other. And you're just like, what is happening right now? And they're right there on the street, middle of the day, and they're just stabbing each other. And I'm like, okay, we need to get out of here, right? No, crazy sister over here goes walking up to them, and she's standing right outside the group of everybody stabbing each other. She's cheering on. She's like, get him, get the agent, and you're like, what's going on? She's cheering them on, And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, Elders, get over here. And you're like, no, I'm not going to be anywhere near you. And I'm just like, get him. And you're just like, oh my gosh. And she's like, oh, are we numpty? You're just like, oh my gosh. And it was this whole wild experience. I've never seen anything like it. And then all of a sudden they all just stopped stabbing each other and they all walked away. And you're just like, I have no idea what happened.
Oh my gosh.
That's weird.
That's crazy.
I would guess that was probably not the first time that woman had seen something like that happen. Clearly, if she's like, all right, let's go.
She was probably in a bunch of groups with it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I know. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you a story, okay? But don't be judging me on this, okay?
No
Do not.
judgment. No judgment.
We go over to her house one day. She had a cat, okay? I cannot believe I'm telling this. Anyway, she has a cat, okay? And I learned if you just sit there and just, give the cat a nice little rub, especially if you get right on the rump, and just pet it, simple, whatever. Cats love it, okay? And this cat comes up, it's rubbing up against me, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So I just kind of lay down while we're in the lesson. I'm sitting here just kind of rubbing it, And then the cat's tail like stands straight up, and I'm like, what's this thing doing? And guys, this thing squirted. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just turned the cat on. And I did not mean for this to happen. And I repented so hard for so long for turning a cat on. It was not at all what I meant to have happen. And I was just like, I am so sorry. And I'm like repenting for bestiality and crap that because I did this. I didn't even know this was a thing.
I didn't know that
it
either.
Was yeah, I've been careful with cats ever since.
You learn something new every day.
You learn. Oh my goodness. While we were there, that's also where Brother Goldberg was. I know that Harper talked with you and told you the curry story. Okay, I want to tell you about the curry story because it wasn't quite that way. Okay, he would come over and he'd be like, Eldest, why don't you come over for dinner Wednesday night? And we're like, okay, yeah, cool. We'll come over for dinner. No problem. And he says, yeah, I'll make you a curry. And I go, oh, cool. Can you make a hot curry? And he's like, yeah, I can make you a curry. And I'm like, no, I want a hot curry. And he says, yeah, I can do that. No problem. I'm like, cool, let's do it. Because I've had a bunch of sweet curries and I didn't care for the sweet curries, right? So I'm like, yeah. So we go over there for a hot curry. And what does he do? He offers us a coconut curry. And I'm like, yeah, Brother Goldberg, this isn't spicy. Come on. And he's like, I know, but the other elders, and I'm like, I get it, they can't take it, but that's okay. Arizona boy here can take it, let's do this. And he's like, okay, next time, elder. I'm like, okay. So the next time we go over there, another coconut curry. And I'm like, Brother Goldberg, you said you were going to make us a spicy curry. Oh, I know, but the other ones can't. And anyway, this happens like 3 or 4 times. He promises a spicy curry, and then we get a sweet one. So we get on the bus one day, we're driving back, and he says, Elders, you coming over for dinner? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, hey, I'm thinking about making a curry. And I was like, you going to make a spicy one? He's like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, I don't think you are. And he says, yeah, of course I can. And I'm like, no. Not only do I not think that you are, I don't think you can. I don't think you have the ability to make a spicy curry. And he's like, oh, Elder, I can make a spicy curry. I was like, no, I don't think you can. I don't think you even know what spice means, bro. Oh, Elder, I can. And I'm like, no, I really don't think you can. And he's like, oh, it's on now. And I'm like, okay, I hear you say that, but I don't think it is. But, whatever. Well, so we go over there. You open up the door and the smell hits you. And the second it hit, my nose is running, my eyes water up. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, what did this guy do? Oh my gosh. Today, it is still the spiciest food I've eaten in my life. I don't know what he put in this stuff. I've never had anything like my salsa did not hold up to this thing. It was the spiciest thing I've ate in my life. Like, no Mexican food. Like, nothing comes up to this, okay? It hurt so bad to eat. Like, it hurt. And he brought out this big old plate, and I'm just looking at this thing like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And the other missionaries, like, they take a couple bites, and they're like, I'm done. The next one eats like half his plate, and he goes, oh, I'm done. Another one ate a chunk. He's like, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. And here I am, and I'm just like, I got to save face. He did it just for me. And so I ate the whole plate, and it hurt so bad. And then we finished, and we step out, and I'm like, Elder, we have to go back to the apartment. He goes, what? I was like, we have to go to the apartment right now. And he's like, okay. I have never, it burnt so bad for 4 hours. It hurt so bad. I have never, ever in my life. It was a whole thing. Oh my goodness. And I never asked him to make a spicy one again. Like, it hurts. I learned he can do it. He owned me. All of me that
day. Coconut curry sounded pretty good right after that, didn't it?
Right. Oh my gosh, it hurt so bad. We also had like a day, like it was late one night and the bars were in full swing, and this guy comes out and he's just totally pissed, you know? And so he comes out and he walks up to me and we're just trying to have the conversation, you know, hey, we're talking about God, you know, and he walks up and he's like, hey, Elder, that's a nice jacket there. And I'm like, yeah, it is a nice little, you know, it's just a suit, but yeah, sure, whatever. And he's like, I wonder if I could fit that. And I'm like, oh, probably. And he just all of a sudden he takes his arm and just opens my jacket up and shoves his arm down the arm sleeve with mine, and I'm stuck in this thing with him. And then he's trying to get the other one on, and I don't want him to get in there because I know if he does that, like I don't have any say in what happens after that. So I'm like trying to swing around, and he's trying to get into it. We're spinning circles while he's trying to get into my jacket with me.
Oh my gosh!
It was such a mess.
Oh,
yeah, goodness. I don't know. I really liked that area. I liked that ward. It was a good ward. I played the piano a lot there. Okay. I gave some talks that changed a lot of things for me while I was there. I learned a lot of how to like rely on the Spirit, because like, here's the thing. I'm not a well-spoken person. Okay. I talk a lot, but I'm not a well-spoken person. There's a difference. So I was super nervous for giving these talks, and there was a lot of prayer and a lot of research and everything that went into them. And when I gave them, there was just a power that came with it. And that was just, I don't know. It was a nice experience to kind of learn to rely on that Spirit, you know? Let me see. While I was there, Elder Kuhn's last companion, Elder Lushai, it wasn't his last companion, it was just one of his companions. Anyway, it was from Romania. And he went home. He had extended because he was scared to go home. Other reasons, not my story. Anyway, he ended up extending as long as he could, but it meant that he went home mid-transfers. And so Elder Kuhn suddenly didn't have a companion mid-transfers. And so he came and joined me and Elder Whitehead, I'm pretty sure. And so that was the only time I was in a threesome, and it was for like 2.5 weeks. But yeah, so we were there for that. I still talk to Elder Kuhn too.
That's cool. Love it.
Yeah. Let me see. I got transferred after 9 months. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm getting transferred. They're like, you're going from Springboig to or Shettleston to Springboig or whatever, you know. So I went across the street basically to the different companion. And so that's when I ended up with Elder Harper. And we were together for a long time. And it was a really hard time when I was with him. And it wasn't that we weren't working hard. We were working our butts off. We were out every day. We followed the handbook to a T. We just learned it was easier to do that. It was easier not to fight back with your leaders than it was to tell them they were wrong and stupid. It was just easier. Okay. Yeah. And so we knuckled down. You read the book, the white handbook. It says you're supposed to follow this. If it says you wake up at 6:30 on the dot, we were up and we were doing our stuff. We didn't wake up a minute before or a minute after. It says you're supposed to exercise for however long. We did that. And I mean, we followed it to a T. We went a month and a bit without a single lesson. And it was a really hard time. We were just getting ripped apart every day, every night by our leaders, you know, with the exception of, I think, Justin Whitehead was still our district leader, and a lot of the crap stopped with him. He was a really good leader. He didn't pass a lot on. He still helped us improve. And talk to us about that kind of stuff, but the yelling and screaming stopped with him mostly. If the zone leaders called us up personally, that was a different story, but with him, a lot of that stopped. One time while I was with Harper, we decided to make eggnog. I learned a really important thing when you make eggnog, okay? You have to keep stirring the eggs all the time. If you stop, they will cook. And we learned that chunky eggnog is not a good thing.
That's awful.
It is not worth it. I'm just telling you now. Somebody has to man that spoon all the time. You cannot stop. We also something happened with we had a washer dryer combo that would it was a side load washer dryer combo, and we threw our stuff in, but if that thing doesn't finish, it will not unlock. And I don't remember what happened. We needed to get into it one day for something, or it froze, or something went wrong. We had to get into it. By the time we got into it, we flooded that apartment. The whole apartment was just flooded. It was a mess.
Oh, jeez.
When Harper got with me, he was really quiet. He was a really reserved kind of person, and he taught with a power, but he was really quiet. He wasn't outgoing, didn't like talking to people. I'm a little crazy, and I bring crazy out of people, and so it was kind of fun because I got to help Harper. I started breaking that box open, and after he left me, he went to Elder Lubeck, and all kinds of crazy came out then, and now he's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun while we were there. Made a lot of fun videos. Yeah, I got a lot of fun videos. Anyway, that couple months while I was with him was some of the hardest times on the mission, though. I was over the year mark, coming up on a year and a half, something like that, and it just a month and a half without investigators is a long time to go. 2 months. It's a long time to go. And not a single lesson, and we were bussing, we were just getting beat down. So and the zone leaders, they were on us. Hey, you would be in this area if there wasn't someone you can baptize. And I hated hearing that, but they told us it all the time, you wouldn't be here. And the zone leaders called us one day, and they specifically told us that message. And the next day it was the transfer call came in, and they sent both me and Harper out of the area, and they shut down the area. And I was laughing so hard. I'm like, in your faces. And they're like, it's pride, Elder. And I'm like, I don't even care right now. And they're like, that's pride. And I'm like, I don't care. We could have baptized somebody, and they shut down the freaking area. Don't tell me. And they're like, pride. And I'm like, I don't care.
Oh,
it was such a thing. We had to pack up the whole apartment, and then I ended up taking, I think, most everything from that apartment to the next area I went to, which is Cumbernauld. There's another town out there, starts with the A. Anyway, east side of Glasgow. I got caught in the Glasgow Triangle. It was a whole
Alloa?
thing.
Was it Alloa?
No.
Part of Cumbernauld, right?
Oh, part of.
Yeah, same ward. Start with the A.
I remember because I lived in the rival hood in Cumbernauld.
Yeah, it starts with the A. Anyway, so yeah, we went out there, we opened up a new apartment, but we got to that apartment, and that was like a pay-as-you-go gas and electric, whatever. So you had to go down to the gas station, pay your, put some money on a card, and then swipe a card in the meter at your house. And when you ran out of money, the electricity would turn off and stuff. That was
it Abram Hill?
No.
Start
with the A. Yeah.
There's a small village called Auchensterry near Kilsyth. Is that right or no?
No.
Just go through the map. Annathil?
No.
That's south of Cumbernauld.
I don't know. I lived in Carbrain, and just up the road was Abram Hill, and they hated each other.
So. Airdrie is what I'm thinking of.
Airdrie. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, just south of there.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, so here's the thing. I was with President Frederick up until this point, okay? Right about the time that this happened, I think one transfers before, while I was with Harper, is when President Griffiths came in. There had been little things that I had been into, like repent for with President Fredericks when you do interviews and stuff like that and whatever. When President Griffiths came in, he sat down with me to do my opening interview, and he told me that President Fredericks had thrown all the mission records away. And so for the missionaries, and so any of wherever you were on all of that, he gave you a clean slate with the new mission president. And to me, it was like the biggest sign of what repentance looks like. He gave everybody a clean slate, and it meant a lot to me. I don't know. I really liked President Fredericks. Me and him got along so well. He was fun. Um, there's a mine in you'll know it, Jack, in Morenci, right? It was ran by it used to be Phelps Dodge, and then Freeport McMoran came in and bought it out. Okay, and it was one of the contracts that President Frederick didn't have. President Frederick had a company that did. You've interviewed him, but he had a country did dynamite, right? And he would sell to mines and demolition crews, and so he wanted that contract. And not that I could have ever given it to him, but we had something that we connected on, and so it was fun because like I'd been in the mine before the mission, and so we had that. And you'd go to zone conferences and stuff like that, and it was fun because he'd get up there and play the clip from President Hinckley, where he was like, my President Hinckley voice is totally not going to come through now that I want to do it, but he'd be like, how do you move mountains? And he'd just be like, one shovel at a time. He'd get in there to talk about you move mountains one shovel at a time, and he'd be like, this is how I move mountains. You just watch this video and the whole mountainside would go up, just and you just hear him, screw the shovel method, screw that. We're gonna move the whole mountain at a time. Just every freaking zone conference, there's mountains going up, and he was so proud of it.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah, we also had this other office couple that was there, and he was so rude to his wife. He would just say the worst things to his wife, and she'd come up and she was just the sweetest little thing, and she would just come up, Elders, how are you? And he'd just be like, Elders, don't listen to her. She's stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And you're just like, what the heck? And for, one time President's like, Elders, I absolutely love this elder. Don't ever treat your wife like that. And we're like, okay. Anyway, President Griffiths came in, and it was like President Griffiths had I got to stop calling him out. It was like he had a chip on his shoulder, and I don't know what it was. He really liked the corporate kiss butt game, and so the people that would kiss up to him, he really liked, and he would promote them. The other ones he wouldn't. And whatever, it's not about promotion anyway, but you could watch it happen, and it was really frustrating to just watch it happen. We got to this new area. I had a new companion I'm not going to mention, and I really liked this companion, but this companion was really disobedient. That was a frustrating thing, and you're trying, it'd been pounded into your head that, obedience is a law of heaven, and if you're not 100% obedient, you can't be blessed, and if you are blessed, then that's going to be on your head, and this missionary wasn't obedient, and so, here we are, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're out with single sisters bowling, and I don't know. We had some problems there. We went to a zone conference interviews. President was there, and I sit down for my interview, and he says, "Oh, Elder, how's it going with Elder so and so?" And I said, "I'll be honest, President, I'm really frustrated." And he says, "Oh, why's that?" And and let me back up just a hair. When I got the call that I was going to go with this elder, the mission president said, "Elder, just so you're aware, he is the senior companion, not you." And before, it was never, I've been with district leaders, so of course they were the senior companion, but regardless, it was never something that we even discussed. It was just, we're here to do a job, just go out and do the job. Who cares who's in charge? We're just here to do a job. But he really wanted me to know that this other elder was the one in charge. And that was such a weird thing to me, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, so we're having this interview. He says, how's it going? I'm like, I'm struggling. We're not obedient, and we can't be blessed if we're, not being obedient. And he says, I got rebuked over it. He says, Elder Shiflett, that's pride. And I'm like, wait, what? And he says, that's pride. And he says, you need to listen to your companion. I said, but we're not being obedient. We're not following the rules. I don't know how to deal with this. And he's like, you're being prideful and you need to listen to him. Whatever he tells you, you need to do. And I was so confused by it. And he just ripped me apart for it.
I can understand now why the P word is a trigger word for you. My gosh.
Which P word?
Pride.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure every time you watch the Joseph Smith First Vision video, you were cringing like, beware of pride, boy.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So we go back after I just been ripped apart, and the other elder, he's like, man, interviews were so good, and I'm like, they really weren't. They really weren't. We went back and we're planning one night, and he says we need to do an activity to try to bring recent converts and everybody back together. Try to bring investigators and everybody together. And we're like, yeah, I think that's a good idea, Elder. He says, I think we should play. So what do you got in mind? He says, I think we should play hide and go seek in the dark. And I said, Elder, I don't think that's a good idea. And I was pretty sure he had the hots for this one sister in the ward, but on top of it, there was another one that was a recent convert that I was pretty sure had the hots for me. And anyway, I kept telling him this isn't an appropriate activity for missionaries. This isn't something that we should do. And he says, Elder, I'm senior companion. We're going to do it. And I wasn't about to get ripped apart by president again. So I just said, you know what? You're right. I'll be obedient. Let's do it. And he says, besides that, you got nothing to worry about. He's like, I'm going to be next to your side the whole time. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course you are. And he's like, well, I don't understand the big deal. And I said, well, I think this sister, likes me. And he goes, Elder, who would like you? I'm like, well, that's a bit of a dick move, but sure, whatever. Anyway, so we go, and frankly, I was better looking. Anyway, we go to this activity, and a bunch of them show up, and the sister that liked me showed up. Okay, as well as the one that he liked. The lights turned off and my companion disappears. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. It's dark, I can't see. And so I knew like where the primary room is. And I was like, I could just go straight back down into the primary room and just kind of hide out there until the lights turn back on. And I go back there, I sit down, and I'm just kind of waiting out the time, and the door opens and the sister comes in, the one that liked me.
Yeah.
She wants to kiss. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I can't do that. I'm a missionary. I pull out this girl that I liked from back home, and I'm just trying to show her in the dark, of course, this picture of this girl. And I'm like, look, this is my girlfriend. And she wasn't, but we're going to use it anyway. This is my girlfriend. It's a big deal. I can't be doing this, and she just doesn't understand. She wants to do it. And she's like, anyway, right about the time she's reaching in to kiss, whatever, door open, and I'm trapped in a corner. I'm kind of stuck there, Right as that happens, door open, light turns on, and there's my companion. He looks at me and says, Elder, what the hell? And I go, where were you? You ditched me. You left me, and it was just me here alone. And anyway, we left. I said, we can't do this project anymore. We left. And I said, we need to call the mission president. And he says, what for? Nothing happened. And I said, I feel like we need to call the mission president. And so I called the mission president. I said, hey, we just had this happen. And he said, it was like a week before, I don't know, a week or two before transfers. And he says, hey, will you be okay till Sunday? And I said, yeah. He says, okay, I'll be there on Sunday. So the president shows up on the Sunday. He says, Elder, come in here, let's have a talk. And so we sat in there, and I had an interview with him. He says, tell me what happened. So I went, told him everything that happened. And he says, well, she says you raped her. And now I'm just blown away. Like,
Gosh.
my dad had told me before I left on the mission, he says, he said, whatever you do, make sure you don't ever get in trouble. Because when you're in another country or whatever, if you get accused of anything, the church will leave you high and dry. And here I was in another country, and the very thing that I've been warned about is now happening. And I didn't even want to be there. I just wanted to go home originally, and I can't go home. And now I'm being accused of rape. So, he says, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. So I went through and I told him everything again. And he says, well, she's saying you raped her. He's like, you realize all she has to do is call the police, and the church is they won't be there for you. They're going to take you away. They'll put you in jail, and you're going to have to face all the charges, everything. And you're on your own. The church won't be there. They won't back you up on this. And I was so confused. And I'm like, this is supposed to be God's church. You're supposed to have the spirit of discernment. How can you not tell that I'm not lying to you right now? I'm standing in front of you. I'm bearing you my heart, and I'm telling you I didn't do this. And none of that matters. All that matters is she says something. Don't get me wrong, like, it's a serious thing. Everybody needs to be heard. Yeah. I was being accused of something I didn't do in a country that anyway. We ended up in the bishop's office together with the bishop. We went over everything again, and then they brought her into the room, and she says, no, that never happened. And so I got off the hook. Well, not off the hook. It never happened. But now this like self-esteem that was, had gone from up here because I was so prideful, and it came down to whatever. Now I'm at the bottom. And they decide that in a week it's going to be transfers, and they're going to transfer me out of the area. It would be best. And I agreed. And so I got transferred out of the area, and I ended up, Elder Harper had left me, went to go serve with Elder Lubeck back in Paisley. And then Harper went home right at the same time as this transfer. And so I ended up going to Paisley to be with Elder Harper or Lubeck. And Elder Lubeck was fun. He was my favorite companion. Like, me and him we were two peas in a pod. But my self-esteem and my depression and everything had already just kind of been at the top. So I'm back there in Paisley again, and I'm like, hey everyone, I'm back, y'all. And we had good times there. At one point we were playing soccer, and I know it was a lot of fun. The Americans would play the British, in soccer, and try to see who was better. Americans always won. We rock.
That's how I remember it too. Yeah,
exactly. The British never won the games, but boy, they tried. But in this particular game, it was the ward playing, and we were just the two missionaries that were playing. And me and Lubeck ended up. They said, "You two are just like, you're too good. We can't have you both be on the same team. It won't be fair." And so they split us up on the opposite teams. And so we end up there, and we're playing. The ball comes out, and we're both running up, and we both hit the ball right at the exact same moment. And something's got to give. We both went to the ground, and I blew his ankle out. And so we ended up in the hospital in the ER. His foot was all black and purple and green, and so they went in there, and they said, hey, doctor comes up, feels his ankle. How's that? Does that hurt? Does that hurt? Does that hurt? No. Okay. Take 2 paracetamol. If it still hurts in 2 weeks, come back. And we're like, that's it? Okay. Sure. You're the doctor? Sure. So we go do that. 2 weeks later, he's still hurting. Go back to the ER again. We're there. Same doctor comes up. Hey, does that hurt? Does that hurt? Does that hurt? Yeah. Okay. Take 2 paracetamol a day. If it still hurts, come back. Third time, same doctor. Same advice, and that just kind of destroyed the healthcare system for me because nothing happened. It was all about pushing numbers through. It was really frustrating. He ended up coming back. I had a bunch of surgeries on his ankle. It was really messed up. He had 3 months left on his mission at that point, and he just decided to stick it out.
Wow.
I felt really bad about that. He really got messed up. But Paisley, we're back in that area, and Paisley's the area where the lady was from the beginning of the mission. And anyway, and I think I was in the Johnston area even. I don't remember. I think so though. And so, no, maybe not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, I end up down in the Johnston area one day. Maybe more. Anyway, and we go see her, and we show up at the house, and she says, "Oh, how did shift flip?" I still remember the offer I made you a year ago, and that offer still stands. And I'm like, I'm kind of in the pits right now, you know? And I go, you know what? It would be nice to blow off steam. And I tell her, sure, that sounds like a good idea. So we arrange it. We come by on a P day. Here's what you have to know. Okay. Back up. Okay. 7th grade. Okay. Pirates of the Caribbean came out. Okay. And we're there watching it. And Elizabeth Swann puts on the corset. It's all tight. Anyway, she passes out, falls over the wall. Right. And all the girls in class are freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And they're like, it's a corset. And I'm like, what's that? And, they're like, oh, you know, of course, and they explain it to me, and I'm just like, I don't know what it is, but like, I really connected with it, and I'm like, I don't understand it, but I need that in my life. We go over to her house on a P day. Okay, it's our time. I bring another missionary with me. We made sure we followed all the rules. I checked the handbook 3 times. I checked the scriptures. I couldn't find anything that said that this was breaking any rules. Hindsight, if you have to check 3 times, you probably shouldn't do it. But we go over to her house, and she pulls out this beautiful green corset and says, here, why don't you try this on? And I'm like, of course I'm going to try it on. I'm like, how cool is this? And so I got to try on this corset. She had a skirt. She did her makeup. And she said, and she looks and she's just like crying. And she just says, you look better in my clothes than I do. I wasn't as fat back then. Anyway, so she says, go look in the mirror. And I look in the mirror, and this beautiful lady's looking back at me. And I really connected with it. It's the first time I saw myself. Anyway, nothing else happened. We just thanked her for her time. It was a nice way to blow off steam, and we went back to work. And anyway, somebody told somebody, got back to mission president. And so I show up for president's interviews. And he says, oh, Shifley, you got something you want to tell me? And I said, no. And he goes, are you sure you want to rethink that? And I'm like, I really don't have any. I mean, you got to understand, there is zero guilt. I didn't break any rules. I have zero guilt. Okay. And he says, are you sure you want to think that one over again? And I'm like, I don't have anything. There's nothing I want to tell you. And anyway, he says, you want to talk to me about cross-dressing? And I go, oh. And he goes, yeah, let's have a conversation. And I'm like, okay. And he proceeded to tell me that he asked me a bunch of questions. Started off with, are you homosexual? And I said, no. And he says, are you gay? Are you gay? And I said, no. Do you like other men? No. And I know what these words mean. And he's like, well, are you? And I go, no, I don't have any of those feelings. There's no attraction to men. He's like, I need you to rethink about what you're telling me right now. Are you homosexual? And I go, no, there's none of these feelings. Are you gay? No. Do you like other men? No. And he's like, Elder, we need to talk. And he starts breaking out scriptures, and he's reading me all these scriptures about hell and how bad hell is, you know, fire and damnation and the burning souls and weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And he's reading all these scriptures to me, and then proceeds to tell me that I'm a son of perdition, that I'm not even good enough for hell. whenever everything else ends, I'm not even good enough for hell. My soul will be destroyed. God can't even see fit to look on me. How do you respond to that? Like, I was shocked. All I did was try on some clothes. That's all I did. I tried on some clothes and I looked in the mirror and I saw myself and there was joy. That's it. How was that so bad? And he says, I'm going to need to ask you for your temple recommend. And he took my temple recommend away. Now, here's what else you don't know. Jack, Gila Valley Temple, okay? They announced it. They broke ground for the Gila Valley Temple the week before I left on my mission, okay? So the whole time I'm on the mission, they're working on this temple. I'm getting all these pictures, okay? And I don't get to work on the temple. I was really bugged about that. I really wanted to work on that temple. It meant a lot to me that I'd get to work on that temple, and I didn't get to. They dedicated it 3 days before I came home, okay? And here's something else I probably should share, okay? I went in to go do the temple ceremony stuff before the mission, okay? I'm telling you, it didn't sit with me. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't like it, okay? Which is a fairly common response when you talk to a lot of people, okay?
Yeah.
I went in to go do that, and I felt like I was sitting on the wrong side of the room. I couldn't understand why, but I was on the wrong side. I needed to be on that side of the room. Okay? But I was excited to come home and get to see this new temple, get to maybe work on the temple if they hadn't finished it in time. But now the mission president just took my recommend away. So now I'm the missionary out here on a mission that doesn't even have I'm not even worthy enough for a recommend. Why? Because evidently I'm some gay kid over here in Scotland that just got accused of rape, and now I'm over here getting this. And like, what do you do with that? He proceeded to keep asking me questions. He says, why did you dress up? And I tried to explain it to him. I said, I don't understand the feelings, okay? I don't know how to explain this to you, okay? There's parts of my body that don't match. He's like, do you feel like you were supposed to be a girl? And I said, no, I don't know how to explain it. There's parts of my body that aren't here that are supposed to be here. And there's extra parts of my body that are wrong. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just wrong. He's like, what do you mean? And I said, I want boobs, and I don't understand how to explain that to anybody else, okay? I don't understand. And this is the first time I put it all together. I can't explain it. This is it. And I can physically feel them. They're not here, and I can feel them. They're supposed to be here. I don't understand that. I don't understand how I put on clothes, and now I'm as bad as Satan himself, right? Because I tried on clothes, and for a brief minute, I felt good again. You know, every interview after that for the rest of my mission went along the lines of, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing good. He says, have you cross-dressed? And I said, no. And he says, okay, how are you doing in repenting? And I'm like, I'm trying my best. I'm reading all the scriptures I can. I'm praying and I'm begging for forgiveness every day because I tried on some clothes. Okay, just got a couple questions for you. Are you homosexual? No. Are you gay? No. Do you like other men? No. None of this is a thing. I feel this and I can't explain it, but this is here. Okay, well, let's read the scriptures, shall we? And we read the scriptures about damnation. And I'm just stuck with it. And every interview, twice a moves for the rest of my mission went that way. And I didn't get, I was so excited for the end of my mission because it was going to be over. And he had a God complex, okay? He sat there, looked at me, and he starts crying. He says, Elder, I ought to send your butt home. And I was like, do it. I don't want to be here anyways. Send me home. And then he starts to cry, and he says, but I know what it'll do to you if I send you home. And I'm like, spare me the theatrics. Send me home. I don't want to be here. It's not Christ-like. Nothing's Christ-like about this. Nothing. And he wouldn't do it. He wanted to keep me there because it was going to save me. He was going to save me, not the mission. The mission wasn't going to save me. It was him going to save me, okay? The rest of my mission went that way. I was so excited for the end of the mission interviews, because at the end of the mission interviews, it's the interview. You sit down with president. You get to talk a little bit about how you felt your mission went, but then you get to talk about your future, and you get to talk about school and jobs. And I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career, but I had some ideas, and, you know, maybe some presidential wisdom would have been nice, you know? But no, I went into my interviews, and all these other missionaries came out of them going, oh, it was the greatest thing. He told me I should do this and this, and it's going to fix all this stuff in my life. I went into the interviews, and we had the conversation of, hey, by the way, are you homosexual? Are you gay? Do you like other men? That was my final interview with the mission president. And he says, Elder, do you feel like you've repented? And I said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I feel like I've repented for it. I know I shouldn't have done it. I didn't do anything wrong, but wrong time, wrong place. You know, I get that. It wasn't the time or place to do it. Sure, I accept that. I've repented. Just let me go home. And he says, okay, good, you've repented. I said, great. And I've just got confirmation from my priesthood authority that I've repented. And I said, can I have my recommend back? And he says, no. And I said, why? And he says, well, I can't give that to you. Bull crap. Presidents give interview or recommends all the time if they expire. I wasn't allowed, but he says he's not allowed to give me my recommend back. But he says, as soon as you get back home, go see the stake president, and the stake president will take care of you. And I said, okay, if that's what it takes. So I went home, and I went to go see it, but I asked him, I'm like, we're good, right? That we're all taken care of on this? And he says, yes, you're all taken care of. And I go, okay. So I go home. The plane lands, open up the door, the heat wave hits your face, and I just start crying because it's so hot. It's like an oven just hit me, and I didn't understand it. Okay, so hot. Anyway, we go see the stake president. I get released, and he says, you have any questions for me? And I said, yes, my recommend is I don't have it, and can I get it renewed? And he says, yeah, no problem, come by my office on Sunday and we'll get that for you. And I say, okay. So I go get the interview. Okay, I sit down with him, and he says, hey, I just got off the phone with your mission president. And I go, okay, because what do I care? We've cleared everything. We're good, you know? And he says, just got a couple questions. So I'm like, yeah, of course you do. It's a recommend interview. And he says, okay, are you gay? Are you homosexual? Are you gay? Do you like other men? And I'm like, are you kidding me? This all's happening again. And he says, yeah, President told me about that. He told me how you're gay. And I went, I'm not gay. I'm not homosexual. I don't have these feelings. Like, where is this coming from? And he says, okay, let's talk about it. And he proceeds to read me scriptures about damn fire and hell, you know, all of this. And he says, you know what? I'm not going to give you your recommend back. Mind you, 5 days before, the temple back home just got dedicated. What does the family all want to do? They all want to go to the temple. Come check it out. It's really cool. I don't get to go in there, and now I'm having to cover for it and just say, oh, guys, my recommend expired while I was on the mission. I just need to get it renewed. We'll be good. Well, now the president's turning me down, and now I got to go face the family, and I got to tell them why I don't have a recommend.
My gosh.
So now I'm having to do this. And he also tells me, by the way, I think you need to go see a therapist. And I go, okay, sure. I don't understand why, but let's go see a therapist. He says, there's a church therapist down the street, okay? I'm just going to say it right now. I think this particular stake president is dirty, and I don't like him, okay? He sends me to his buddy, the therapist, and I go see this therapist, okay? And the therapist says, why are you here? And I explained the whole situation. I'm like, look, I'm just looking to get my recommend back. That's all I want. And he says, okay, let's talk about it. So I was like, oh, cool. What do you want to talk about? He's like, explain what you're feeling. And I'm like, I'm feeling like I want my recommend back. He says, okay, got a couple questions for you. Are you homosexual? No. Are you gay? Do you like other men? These questions are scripted. The interviews went word for word with each other, just like they went with previous ones. And that's all this therapist wanted to talk about. I went through 3 sessions with this therapist. I was meeting with the stake president twice a week. And I was like, how many times do I have to go to therapy? And he says, as long as it takes. He says, at least 3, though. And I'm like, okay, so I did the 3. Okay. And just pardon everything. Okay. But I did the 3 and the second interview, okay, or with the therapist, right? Cool. What are you here for? Same thing I told you about last week. I'm here for this. Okay, well, what about this? And I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. Okay, are you homosexual? Are you gay? Do you like other men? No, this isn't a thing. I have feeling like these aren't here and they're supposed to be here. I can physically feel them. You hear people talk about like when their leg gets blown off in war, whatever, they have these phantom pains, right? They can feel their feet even though their foot's not there, right? I can feel parts of my body that's not there. I can feel them, but they're not there. And I'm trying to explain this and it doesn't matter. Like they are so caught up on that I'm gay. That is the only thing that matters, and they're going to keep at it until I admit I'm gay, but I'm not gay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's a mess. And so after 3 interviews, I realized it wasn't going anywhere. I walked back into the stake president's office while he was in the middle of an interview, told him he can go f himself, and I walked out. That's how that went. I stopped going to church. Not that I wanted to, but it wasn't going to change. I kept doing everything you were supposed to, but I just kind of quit. I wasn't going to go to any more interviews. I was done with that. Whatever happened wasn't right. I went and I explained to my dad what was going on. I told the rest of my family what was going on. Nobody understood. My dad's like, I don't think you want boobs. I think you just want to know what's behind the bra. I'm like, I know what's behind the bra. They're supposed to be here and they're not. And I can't explain it. But after that, like anytime anything femme came up, my dad would freak out about it. Okay. And so like, it's really hard to date in a little Mormon town when you don't have a recommend and you can't get one. And you're trying to talk to these girls and you're trying to explain, look, I don't have a recommend. I want to get one. I'm trying my best. I'm doing everything I can. I'm literally held up by a process I can't fix. And as soon as they hear that, next day they'd pray, and suddenly God told them that they weren't to date me anymore. Imagine that. And this is how the dating world's going, and you can't get around it. Don't get me wrong. I had really fun dates. Anyway, there's this one girl, I liked her, and I was just like, I'll ask her on a date. And I asked her on a date. We had a great time. And after that, I said, I was like, I think something could happen here. So I went and I said the prayer that you're not supposed to say. And I knelt down and I said, God, I have done everything you've asked me to do. I have been strictly obedient to everything that you said. And I can't get past this. And I don't know why. I don't understand why. Frankly, your plan sucks. It doesn't work for me. I've done everything I've asked, and I came home off the mission feeling like a complete failure. I worked my butt off, but none of it mattered because I'm gay, evidently, and I can't get this. I can't fix this. I like this girl. I want it to work. If it doesn't work, I'm not doing your plan anymore. I'm going off. I'm doing my own thing, and I'm going to transition. And so we dated a couple times. It went well. And it got to a point that I said, hey, I want to get serious with this girl. And so I took her out to the football field and we sat down in the bleachers and I just said, hey, we need to have a conversation. I want to go somewhere with this, but there's some things you need to know. And I proceeded to tell her every bad thing I've ever done in my life ever. Like, because I can't have 10 years down the road a marriage that doesn't work out because of this. And she didn't know, and all of a sudden she doesn't want to date you anymore. And I can't have her come back and say, God told me that I'm not supposed to date you anymore. No, like, this is it. This is me. I have these feelings. I'm working on it. I don't know how else to explain them, but the feelings are here. I'm working on it. Just be patient with me. And I said, but honestly, this is me. So if you don't like it, you can leave. And she says, well, sit down. And she proceeds to tell me all the bad things that happened to her in her life. And some of them were truly terrible things that have happened. And she says, and if you don't like that or can't stand that, then you can leave. And I go, fair enough. And so we dated. And we went to go get married. At one point, there was a community celebration, and there was the stake president at it. And so I saw him and I bring up my fiance and I'm like, hey, President, check out my fiance. Proof that I'm not gay, huh? And he says, she could be your gay beard. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm marrying her just to prove I'm not gay? Like, what's up with this?
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Fun story. I was talking to my sister a little while ago, and she was like, he's a really good person because that person's in her ward. And I was just like, he's not a good person. There's nothing good about anything that happened. There's nothing. She's like, you just need to let it go. No, you don't let that go. You don't let that go. We had fun dates though, you know, and it was fun because like I was allowed to express my femininity a little bit, not much, because we couldn't let, you know, we had a date. We painted each other's nails, you know, whatever. I got to paint her nails. That was a win. She painted mine. Who cares? It's just nails, you know. We painted each other's nails, and she. Anyway, I came home with them. My dad saw the painted nails, and he freaked out on me. He lost it on me. And so after that, I realized I can't show anybody my femininity. And so I started growing facial hair. But then the family didn't like facial hair because now you don't look like a missionary. And frankly, I didn't want to look like one ever again. And she, you know, my fiance asked me, she's like, so if you had a chance, could go back on a mission, would you go? Like, what about when you're older? Would you go back? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't go back. She's like, really? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't go back. Like, nothing about that was good. We did have one day. Okay, we drove out to the ponds behind the town we grew up at. You'll know these ponds anyway. So we go to these ponds, okay, and we were out swimming in the ponds, having just a great time, okay. And me and her get this idea, and we swap our swimsuits. So she puts on my swimsuit and I put on hers, whatever. We're all laughing. Ha ha, it's a good old joke. And then she takes off to the shore and gets ready to go out, you know, jump back in the truck. And she's wearing my swimsuit. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Ha ha, I'll go. I go to the shore and I'm getting ready to climb out of the pond. And right then this truck of a bunch of teenage boys comes driving in, you know, and I'm like, I'm wearing her bikini. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting out of this water right now. I think I'm stuck in the pond for a while. All the friends are laughing. It was just a funny experience, but it just, yeah, I don't know. We had good, clean fun. But because of all that, we never got married in the temple. My family was super disappointed in me because I was the one that was supposed to, you know, I was supposed to make it, and it didn't happen. I was supposed to set an example for all my siblings, and it didn't happen. We got married. I don't know if there's a lot about the marriage that I want to talk about. She was really good to me. She was really good to me. We ended up having 7 miscarriages while we were together.
Oh my gosh.
And like the first set was twins. And we had miscarriage, and then it was another miscarriage, and another miscarriage, and like that takes an emotional toll on you too.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's all we can do to pay our bills. Like things aren't going well. It was a really hard time. So we had 7 miscarriages, and anyway, I decided I was going to go ahead and join the military and such, and I went to go play a game of soccer. But we were debating between military or soccer. I don't know. Long story. Anyway, there was a few things going on. I went to go play a game of soccer, and during this game, I ended up reversing with somebody, and I blew my knee out, and turned out I tore my MCL. And like we were going to the doctor, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and like I'm trying to do air conditioning, and I'm rolling off like people's roofs because I can't keep standing straight, and I can't figure out what's going on. And the doctors, they do like X-rays and MRIs, and they say there's nothing wrong, and I'm like, I keep falling over, something's wrong, and they're like, no, nothing's wrong. And I grabbed my kneecap and just pulled it all the way down toward my foot. And the doctor goes, oh, and I'm like, you can't tell me that's normal. And he goes, yeah, something's wrong. And I was like, I thought so. So they go and look. And they come back and say, oh, yeah, you tore your MCL. It's going to take surgery to fix that. And you're going to be out of work for a year. And I'm like, I can't even pay my bills now. How am I supposed to do this? So we came home, and my wife says, "Now's probably a really bad time to tell you, but I'm pregnant again." And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
and so we're expecting this to be a high, whatever the word is, high stress, high danger kind of pregnancy. We're thinking they're going to put her on bed rest for the whole pregnancy. I'm out of work for a year. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? And I'm just like, I can't catch a break. And you got to understand, like, during all this time, I'm trying to put down all these feelings. I'm sitting here going, oh, none of this stuff exists. The feelings don't exist. They don't exist. Just be a good member, be a good person, go to church, and it took us a little while. It was over a year. We did get our recommends. We did go get sealed in the temple. But now here we are, and she's pregnant. And anyway, she says, I'm pregnant. I need to go get an official test. And I say, okay, let's do that. So we go down, and we end up at this testing facility in Phoenix. She gets tested, comes back, and she says it's a Catholic place. And I said, oh yeah? She says, yeah, and look, and she has this little stuffed animal, and she says, it was blessed by a Catholic priest that we can have a successful pregnancy. And I said, if this works, I'm switching. Like, this is that, and her OB ended up being her stake president. So it was like a whole thing. But anyway, the pregnancy went smooth. And 9 months later, we had a little girl, and she was just this amazing thing. But here I am, and I'm checked out for my feelings. I'm supposed to be the proudest person in the world, and I don't even feel joy that I just had a baby after 7 miscarriages. Like, my feelings are so locked down. I'm so disconnected from them. I don't even feel joy. Like, of course, I'm showing everybody, oh, I'm so happy, but inside, I don't feel anything. I'm just dead inside. And this is just my life. And you're trying to connect, and I can't connect to my kid, other than I just didn't have a lot of stress. I'm good about setting stress off and just saying it doesn't exist. I'm good at saying feelings don't exist, because I'm doing it about everything. No, I can't be whatever the freak is that I think I am. I just put it down. It doesn't exist. These feelings don't exist. So when my wife was stressed out and the baby won't calm down, whatever, I would just sit down, turn on a TV show, say, hey, come here. And I put my little kid in my lap right here. And we would just cuddle and watch the TV together. And it was this like really nice time that I finally got to connect with something. It was really nice. Other than when she was born, they're going in, doing all the checks and everything. And they're saying, oh yeah, everything's so good. Your baby's, we're just so proud that we finally got a baby. She's tiny, tiny, tiny. Super tiny, but she's just this most perfect thing. And she holds your finger, and then all of a sudden the doctors come rushing into the room, and they're doing this check, and they come back and they say, hey, your kid's got a hole in her heart. And I'm like, are you kidding? We had 7 miscarriages, and I just got my baby, and now she's got a hole in her heart. And I'm like, I went and said a prayer, and I'm like, God, what the hell? I just got her. Don't take her away from me. I just got her. So, they said you lucked out. She's getting too much oxygen in her blood with the way that the hole works. And so the goal is we got to keep her alive for 4 months. And if she'll be alive 4 months, we're going to do open heart surgery. And we said, okay. But then we couldn't get our kid to eat. And you're trying to get her, and the kid won't eat. And so then we're back in the hospital, and then they're calling DCS or whatever, the child CPS, whatever. They're calling them on us because they think that we're abusing our kid, and they think that we're not feeding our baby because our baby's not growing at all. And she's in the like first percentile of kids. And we're just like, we're trying, but she's not eating. And they just, so now we're having to talk to CPS people, and they're sitting there telling us how we're bad parents because we're not feeding our kid. And it's not that we're not feeding her, the kid's not eating, and we don't know why she won't eat. And, they get her health built up a little bit, her strength built up, and they send us home. And then the next week we're back in again because the kid won't eat. And then we're out and we're back in again because the kid won't eat. And this went every week for 4 months. And we finally got to where it was time for surgery, and we end up at this children's center down in Mesa, and we go in to go do the surgery. And that was the hardest thing because I had to hand my baby off to some person that I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. And we're there, and I don't understand what's happening, but like, hopefully this person, and you will go walking downstairs in the lobby, and they have this rack there, okay, and they got all these hearts, and they got this model of an elephant's heart, and it's this big old thing, and then they have this heart of a horse, and it's this, and then they got the heart of a human, and it's this, and a heart of an adolescent, and it's this, and then they got this thing, and it's the heart of a baby. It's this little tiny, it's like half the size of an earring. I mean, it's tiny, 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 this little thing, and you're looking at this little thing, and they're the size of a marble, and they're trying to open this thing up and sew a patch inside of it.
Wow.
And hopefully, if they get it right, my kid will live. Hopefully. And that just hurt. And 3 hours later, she came out and they said, "It's a success. Your kid will be good." And I said, "Okay." And we took her, and we go back to the room where they had her, and we sat down with our kid, and our kid was there laying in this thing, and she's got tubes and hoses and I don't even know what wires everywhere connected to my kid, and I can't even hold my kid because she's in this little box and you can't hold her. And all I want to do is just hold her hand because she can hold my finger and I can't hold it, okay? And she goes in there and she just whimpers because she's not strong enough to even cry. She can't cry like a kid. You just hear this little, and that's all she can do is this little whimper. And I'm like, I don't understand this. I don't understand it. And it ended up being a giant reset on her life. So when she was progressing through the different stages of whatever progression kids have to go through, she was 4 months behind in everything. But she was there. She was right on track, just 4 months behind. And she was just a really tiny kid. And she's just the most, like, if you didn't know that she's got a big scar right down her, you would never know. And she's just like every other kid out there, and we ended up being lucky. She's just the best kid. You tell her to do something and she just listens, and she's just a happy kid, okay? And I love this kid. And me and her became really close, and I finally was able to start connecting to something. It was really nice. We moved back from Phoenix to my hometown, and I started a farm while we were there. And, a kind of crazy thing, but it was a fun experience, and I grew a lot from it. And my kid would come out and help me on the farm. My wife would come help me, and it was a lot of fun. Um, Eventually, it felt like our time there was kind of coming to an end, and we needed to move back to, or decided that there wasn't a whole lot left for us in Arizona, and we decided to move up to Idaho. And I'm going to backtrack just a hair, okay? When I first got off the mission, I was trying to understand more about what I felt, okay? And I found some cross-dressing stores online, okay? One of them went by the name Janet's Closet, okay? And it was different than other stores because it had like breast forms that you could buy. So if you wanted to wear a dress or something, you didn't have to stuff it with socks. You could look more natural. And I thought that was a really cool thing. And I promised myself if I ever saw that store again, if I ever saw it, I would go in, whatever. We go up to Idaho. I'm an electrician. I'm working, and Idaho was a really weird place. We were in Rexburg, and that's just a really weird place. But we picked it because it was so similar to our hometown. And I figured that would be the easiest place to kind of connect. And it was hard. People there don't want to connect because everybody comes in for school and then they leave. And so unless you're going to stay there for a long time, they don't want to connect. And so you just can't connect to people. And it was a hard place. I got on with this company doing electric work, and it was a great place. They treated me well. And an opportunity came up to go work on a temple, and I was so excited. I was like, I've never worked on a temple before. I wanted to. It was a itch I haven't been able to scratch because the Gila Valley temple happened while I was gone. And I go, I got to work on this temple, and they called me in and say, "Hey, do you want to work on it?" And I go, "Yes, I do." And it was the LA temple, but they had a little bit to do in Idaho Falls. But anyway, LA temple, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And they said, "Okay, we're going to send you down." And all of a sudden, it felt like God was giving me a second chance to fix everything that I had messed up on my mission. I got to fix it. And I got a second chance. And that was so nice. Elder Bednar came while I was on the mission, and at one point he made a comment that said, your mission is going to be a direct reflection of how the rest of your life goes. And that stuck with me. And so I was really scared because I came home feeling like my mission was a failure. And so I've been so scared that my life is going to be a failure. And here I am going through life. It's hard to make jobs work. It's hard to make anything work for us. And I'm just, proving him that I'm going to be a failure. And I hated it. I get to go work on this temple. God's given me a second chance, and I can't blow this. I can't mess this up. And we go down there, and it was a really cool experience. When you go to the LA temple, you can go down into the basement area, and in one of the back rooms, they have the original blueprint signed by David O. McKay. And, so I got to go in and see these blueprints, and it was a really cool thing. And they were doing a remodel on it, and so we ended up going. The way they have it broken down, is in instead of saying you have your sea turtle, right? Celestial, terrestrial, celestial rooms, right? Instead of saying that, they just go as the A room, the B room, and the C room. C being celestial, okay? It's just easier to remember. Anyway, so we go to this temple, and they're like, you're going to be working in the B room, which is right before the celestial room. And we go in there, and they have this dome that comes down. And they said, we're getting rid of that dome because we're putting in a projector. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this. And we go in there, and they're kind of struggling. I was like, here, I can help you with that. So I climb up to the top of the scaffold, pull out a Sawzall. I'm like, what do I need to do? And they're like, cut it. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right to me. So I'm on the temple, and I pull out a Sawzall and just start cutting away at the temple. I'm like, that's a new thing, and there's gold leaf that they have all, finally done around this. And I'm just cutting through it all. And when we're done, what do? Just take it out back and throw it in the garbage. And I'm like, okay. And this is a new thing. And they decided to get rid of some chairs, right? Well, when the temples get rid of chairs, it'll cause a big fight between members if you get to take stuff home. So one of the rules of working on the temples is you don't get to take anything home with you. And so anyway, so if they're going to throw away chairs, they cut the chairs down into pieces, and they cut them up, and cut all the seats and make sure that it's an unusable thing, and then they throw it in the dumpster. And I hated it. It's such a waste. So much money is just lost and wasted, and it could go to good people that need things, but I get why they do it too. But yeah, it was really cool. You get to see the temple. You get to see how it all works. And it's just a totally unique experience. And you go onto a construction site where everybody's not swearing at you, and where everybody's not yelling at you over other stuff. Don't get me wrong. You'll have your disagreements and you don't mind it, but it's cool. It's a different experience. Everybody has the same goal. And so if you're there and you're running behind, and you're holding up another crew, instead of them just coming up and yelling at you, they'll come up and say, hey, you need an extra hand? And they'll jump in and they start helping you do your job. And if you got extra time, yeah, you better offer it to them. And I don't know, we were supposed to be there for 3 weeks, and we finished in 3 days. And they came back and went, wow, that was really good. So, wait a couple weeks, because you have the demo section, and then they have to rebuild, and then you have to come in to do the finishing touches, right? And so you're there, you leave for a couple of weeks, and you come back to finish the job. So we come back, we're supposed to be there for 2 weeks. We're there for 2 days, and we finished. And they go, wow, you did a really good job on this. Would you be interested in doing more temples? And I'm like, yeah, sign me up for all of them. And so all of a sudden I was traveling the country, and I was doing all these temples, and I'm running crews in different states, and it was a lot of fun. So I ended up working on 19 temples. And I fell in love with it. It felt like God was giving me a second chance. I don't know where I put it. Somewhere I have a list here with all the temple names on it. Here it is. So I did LA, and I started off with Idaho Falls. I helped him for a week. That's 20 temples. It's not on my list. Anyway, so 20 temples. Anyway, yeah, so I go to I get home from LA, and they said, hey, you did such a good job. I was supposed to have a week off or something like that before I go to the next one. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just waiting to hear. And they call me and they say, hey, do you think you can make it to Detroit? And I said, sure, that's not on my list, but it's another temple we're doing, but another guy's on that job. And they said, well, he had to come home for a little bit and they're upset because there's no one running that job. We need you to go up there, get it back on track. It's behind and it needs to come back on track. And I go, yeah, sure, I can go do that. When do you need me there? And they said, tomorrow. And I go, oh, and I'm in Idaho. I just got there a couple hours before. And they said, we need you there tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay. They said, there's a plane leaving in 2 hours. You need to catch it. And I'm like, okay. So I repack my bags and I jump in the truck. I say sorry to my wife and kid and I take off and jump on a plane and get to Detroit. And I'm driving through Detroit and we do the job on the temple. We got it caught up. We ended up working like an 18-hour day one day, but we got it caught up and on schedule and they're happy with it. And I don't know. I really like Detroit. It was a nice city. But one of the things was I'm like, if you're going to go to another city, you got to see at least something while you're there, make it worth your time, extra. And Detroit's right there on Lake Erie. So one day we decided we're going to go down to Lake Erie, go down, check it out. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And we're going back to our hotel. And on the way back, I look at the store on the side and it says Janet's Closet. And I go, holy crap, that's not the same store. And so that night I check it out and sure enough, it's the same store. And I had promised myself 10 years previous, if I saw it, I'd go check it out. And I'll go check it out. So on my way home, at the end of the job, whatever, I stop into the store and it was a really cool store. They were super affirming. And I just said, look, and I told them the story and I just said, I promised myself I would check it out. That's it. And they go, okay. So I was checking it out and I had a great conversation with this lady there and she was just super affirming. And by the end of it, I bought something while I was there. Okay. I bring it home and I just show it to my wife and I'm like, check this out. And I said, I just think this is the coolest thing. I didn't even know they make this, And she goes, some days I think you'd just rather be a girl. And I go, some days I do. But, I got the family and that's what's important. And she says, I really think you need to take some time and think about what you want. And I'm like, well, I want the family. I don't even have to think about that. That's what's important to me is my family. I got my kid. I got my wife. That's what's important. But she kind of pushed it, no, I really think you need to think about it. And I'm like, I'll put some thought into it. So go on. I'm doing other ones. I end up in Sacramento. That was a really cool temple. There's turkeys that go running across the grounds while you're there, and really cool place. And then I get called to go out to Palmyra and go check out that temple, go work on that one. And so next thing you know, I'm in Palmyra, New York. I'm there where they're having, where it all started. And I go through, I do the tours while I'm there, check it out, walk the sacred grove, and I just don't feel anything. I want to, but I don't feel anything. And I go, okay, well, whatever. We're just moving on. I don't know. It was interesting. They tell, Palmyra was a really cool temple. There's a section there where it's the only temple that they have glass on the outside of the temple that you can see through. And what happened was there's supposed to be the temple president's office right there. And behind it, they had this big mural of the sacred grove. And when President Hinckley walked through the temple, he said, why do we have a mural here of the temple when the real thing's right there? And so they turned around and decided to remodel it. And they took out the stained glass and put in a window you can see through. So when you walk through the main doors, you can see all the way through. And there's the real sacred grove right there. The only problem was there's some trees in the way that were blocking the view. And so they went down and asked the town, hey, can we get rid of the trees? And the town says, no, can't get rid of the trees. We're not going to allow you to. And so, I don't remember. I think President Hinckley says, pray for a miracle or something like that. And then 3 months later, the trees magically died and opened up a hole just big enough. And so the town just lets them do that. And I'm like, okay, but I've worked enough construction. Okay. That some superintendent on a job site's like, hey, we have to make this thing happen. Go pour salt down there or something along those lines and make it happen because it happened, but whatever. Anyway, so that's Palmyra. I could talk to you about temples for a long time. ultimately, like, I'm starting to have to deal with these feelings. They're there, and I know they're there. And the thing is like going back to the store, it brought them all back up, and I'm like, I knew I shouldn't do it, but it's there. I'm trying, so I figure I need to go see a therapist, but I'm not about to go to a church therapist again. So I go find one that specializes in LGBT issues, and I just go, we just need to talk. And I go, I'm trying to find a balance between church and this because I feel like there's a balance somewhere. I know what the church believes and states, and I believe in this stuff, and I'm following all the rules. I don't want to break the rules. That's not my goal here. My goal is to keep my family together, to keep active with the church. But maybe if I can find some way to deal with this, because whatever I'm doing right now is just not working, you know? And so she worked with me, and we spent a long time trying to get me back in touch with my feelings because I've been so locked out of my feelings. After we got into there, then it was, hey, how do you know, she said, after that, it was just trying to figure out how we felt about being trans and all this kind of stuff. And I had to start going through with that. But I told my wife, you know, I'm keeping in touch. I'm telling her everything. And I'm like, look, I'm just trying to find a way to make this all work. But then she's there on the other end saying, honey, you're so much happier when you get to deal with this. Like, I can see it. The light comes back in your eyes, and you're so much happier this way. And I go, I care about the family. This is what's important. And it got to a point eventually where she's saying, you need to transition. You need to be true to yourself. But I'm also not lesbian, so I'm not going to stay with you if you do it. And I go, I just care about the family. And this is becoming a daily conversation. And I'm getting tired because every day it's just a fight trying to keep the family together. And I'm trying, look, I'll drop the transition. I will drop everything else. I don't even want to transition. I do, but that's not what's important to me. What's important is keeping my family together. That's what's important. Okay. We end up going, I went to Washington to go work on one of the temples there. And on the way up, you know, we're having a conversation, and I just knew that the marriage was over. And we're talking, and we start discussing it. And I go, there's no way that this is going to work, is it? And she says, no, there isn't. And I go, okay. And I said, Caitlin, are we going to be okay? And she says, yeah, I think we're going to be okay. And I said, let's discuss what a divorce would look like. And so we discussed it, and the feeling of the spirit came into the truck where I was at while I was driving down the road, so strong you could have cut it with a knife. It was just there. It was palpable. You could feel it. And I just knew that we were going to be okay. I don't understand why this is here, but it's going to be there, you know. And I'm praying, and at first the prayers were, God, like, why do I have this issue? Like, I've been trying for 14 years to get rid of this. Why is it still here? Like, why? You know, and you can't get answers. No, there is no answers. You're not getting any answers. And finally I got to a point, and I just said, okay, it's here. The feelings are here. I'm admitting they're here. They exist. I don't know why they're here. Can you just help me deal with them? And suddenly I started to get answers, you know, and answers started coming in saying, hey, I'm a God, and I have perfect love. And that love applies to you too. And I start crying because if there's a God that loves me, I don't believe he makes a place. If God loves me, he sees me first off. He sees me. And if he can see me, then whatever. I don't know. He sees me though. And it's not like he turned his back on me like I was told. And if there's a God that loves me, I don't believe he created a place where I can't be with him together again. I get to go back and be with him because I know the love that I have for my kid and the things I would do for this kid that has a hole in her heart. Okay. And if I can have that kind of love for this little kid that can't help herself, then how much more does he have for me? And if he has that kind of love for me, then why would I not end up with him again? I can't picture any other way. And so I just, okay, whatever you say. I don't know what your plan is. I don't understand what it's here for, but I'm here. Use me, whatever you need. I'm here for you. And, you know, It was great. I started having a relationship with God. I began to have like a very real and personal relationship with God. Finally, for a long time I felt disconnected, and there's so many other things I could tell you about how this all worked out, but I finally started to have a relationship with God. I went to the LA temple to work on it a second time, and while I was there, I was sitting out front one morning, and security guards out there, and we're just sitting there talking, waiting for them to open it up and kind of waiting for my crew to show up, that kind of thing. And so while we're waiting there, I'm just having a general conversation, and he ends up telling me about some sister in the ward that came up to him, and she's talking about abortion, how she supports abortion, and she's talking about LGBT rights and how she supports that. And he looked at her and he told her, he says, if you support that, then you don't belong in this church. And I looked at him, I said, don't you ever tell somebody they don't belong. If this is God's church, don't you ever tell somebody they don't belong. Don't ever tell that. It's not what God would do. I ended up at one point on the Denver temple, and while I'm there working on it, I had so many spiritual experiences. This is right at the end of everything kind of working between me and my wife. Okay. While I was there, she called me and says, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. We're done. And I said, okay, I'm tired of fighting. And so we decided to end our marriage, and I was upset, but we're going to be okay because I got that feeling, and we're cleaning up the job, and it was super stressful job. And I'm okay. Just understand, like, I haven't been in a good headspace for a long time. I'm suicidal while I'm working on this job. This job was anything but Christ-like, the way it was ran. And I'm back on my mission again. Just nothing about this job went the way it was supposed to go. And I'm back on my mission, and the suicidality's back, and the feelings are here, and I'm trying to fight them, and I'm just caught back in this thing. And now President Bednar's thing, as Elder Bednar's thing, is coming true. Here I am. I'm about to fail at life again and everything. And I walk into the celestial room, and I just start crying, and I say, God, I don't understand. I've done everything I was supposed to do. I've came here, and I've busted my butt, and I don't understand. I'm here. I don't know what you need from me, but I'm here. And I got this message back, and it said, thank you. Thank you for the work you've done on the temple. And how often do we ever get, like, we think about God and God's perfect and all these things, but have we ever thought about God being perfect of saying thank you? I don't know that I've ever heard it anywhere in the scriptures where God said thank you. He did say well done once, I guess. But he doesn't say thank you. And I'm like, God said thank you. And he said, thank you. You came, you worked on my houses, and I've personally inspected all of your work, and it met all of my expectations. Thank you. I appreciate all the work you've done on my house, but now I have a different job I need you to do. There are all these other people out there that have the same feelings you have. They're my kids, and they need somebody that loves them and won't judge them and will just sit there and love them. And I need you to go out, and I need you to be there for them. So I gave you these feelings so that you would know how they feel, so you can help them. I know it's going to be a hard road, but I need you to help them. They need somebody because they feel the same way you do. So you're going to have these feelings, but you got to work through because I need you. And I said, okay. And so I went through, and I said, I don't know what this is going to take, but I'll do it. And so I did it. I went back. My wife had said, I think you should start transitioning. You should go ahead and take hormones. But we started the hormones, and the hormones made everything feel better immediately. Like, it just, all of a sudden you feel better. And we had gone a little while where it's like a month on, month off, month on, month off, because I wasn't just trying to go, okay, well, there's the end goal. That's not what it was about. It was, I want to do everything right with God, so I'm going to follow whatever I feel is right, And so we did it. Okay, now let's go off of it and let's see how we feel. And as soon as I would come off, the suicidality would pick up, and I'd go back on, and all of a sudden I'm feeling really good again. And I come off, and the suicidality picks up, and I go, I don't like how I feel without it. I'm going to go ahead and just keep doing it. And the handbook says, hey, yeah, you're totally good to do it as long as you're not attempting to transition. And I go, sure, I'm not going to transition. And that's how I was doing everything. And it was it was great. And then after that experience, though, in the celestial room, I just said, I think it's time. I think I need to transition. And so I decided to transition, and everything fell apart after that. Um, I ended up going back up to Idaho. My wife is back in Arizona with the kid, and we separated. And so I went back up to Idaho because that's where the company I was working with was. And while I was there, I got raped. I had death threats coming in, all that kind of stuff. The guys on the work didn't want to work with me. Every week I was being called back into the owner's office to have a discussion about what other crew can they move me to. I was up for a promotion, supposed to be a project manager running a $30 million job. And all of a sudden they didn't need somebody for that position anymore. And I was the one that got cut. And they're putting me on these jobs. I go onto job sites and the crews won't work with me. They're going to go work on the third floor. They're going to put me in the basement doing the shit work because they don't want to be in the same room as me. They don't want to talk to me. And this all just kept going on. I'm not going to tell a whole lot more about everything that happened after that. There's a lot of bad happened. I ended up here in Oregon, and here's where I am. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about religion anymore. I've had a lot of experiences that I can explain. A lot of them I can't explain. And right now I'm okay with that. Maybe there's a God. Maybe this God believes me. Maybe he loves me. Sounds nice. If there is, I believe he's a God of perfect love. I heard of this, I heard somebody explain one time, they're like, the gospel is like the kingdom up on a hill, and we're all at the base of the hill, and there's this one path, this straight and narrow path, and Christ is down at the bottom, and he's welcoming us into this path so we can get to the top. And I go, I don't believe that. I believe that if there's a kingdom up on the top of this hill, that Christ is down at the bottom and he's running through the muck and the crap and the everything else that's down there, and he's meeting you where you're at, and he's saying, hey, look, it's right there. Why don't we go together? And he's walking with you side by side. And if you trip and you fall, it's okay. Get back up. I'm right there next to you. And he'll follow you. And it doesn't matter where you are. There's not one path to get there. It's I'll get you there, and let's go and let's walk together. And it's all it is just right there. And you just got to walk up this hill. I started watching The Chosen. Okay, and I was telling you, Zach, a little bit about it, right? I really liked The Chosen because you watch all these other videos about Christ and all these other videos. It's like, oh, look, here's this God, his miracle birth, then miracle, 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 he dies. Oh, just kidding, that's another miracle. Who knew? And you're like, okay, yeah, cool, I get that, but you can't connect to that because it's not real, it's not human. It's godly, but how do you connect to that? I've never been able to connect to that. And I was reading the scriptures, and I was devouring the scriptures and trying to understand and everything. You go watch The Chosen, okay? And all of a sudden, like, yeah, he's godly, but there's a human characteristic. And all of a sudden there's somebody that I can understand, and he makes a joke and laughs, and everybody else laughs, and he's just a human. He's a God, but he's a human. The miracles still happen, but he's human, and you can see it and you can feel that. And I love it. And one of the things I love about it is you watch it and they show like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they're really good about illustrating what these different groups are and how they interacted with each other, right? And you're watching it, and the Pharisees are so caught up in making sure everybody's following all the rules and making sure everybody's checking off all the boxes. And what they're not good about is remembering that everybody's people, and they're all God's children, and they need help, right? And all of a sudden I'm watching it and I go, oh my gosh, it's like watching the LDS church. And mind you, I know that your viewers have their beliefs, and that's fine. I'm not trying to tear down anybody's beliefs by any means, okay? This is just what I saw. People get so caught up in checking all the boxes and seeing all the, making sure that everybody's following. They're watching so-and-so, the Joneses over here, making sure that they're keeping up, and watching whoever over here and making sure that they're not, doing anything they're not supposed to, and they forgot about the humanity of it all. And that's the part that I stick to. is everybody here were people. The Middle Eastern people on my mission were people. They needed somebody that would just be there and be their friend and love them. The LGBT community are people. They need they're God's children too. They need people that will be there and just hold their hand and love them, because a lot of them don't feel a place in this life. A lot of them want to kill themselves, and it's just a sad part of reality. Okay. And they need people that will just stand there and love them. And what I learned from my mission, the biggest thing I learned, okay, was never mind anything else. I don't care about checking off all the boxes. What I care about is I care about you. I care about you as a person, and I want to know that you're okay. It doesn't matter what your background is. I don't care what your background, I do care, because I like that. But I want you to be the best you can. And I just want to offer you all the love. And I want to just show you the love that Christ offers me, if that's a real thing. I want to offer it to everybody. And I want everyone to feel like they have a place. And I want everyone to feel welcome, because that's the love I didn't get. And whenever I go out and I get to talk with missionaries, and I see missionaries, or in the past when I got to go out with missionaries, I tried to show them that love. And if they're having a hard time, I came around and I was like, hey, let me tell you about this really crappy thing happened to me on my mission. And you start telling all these stories, and they're laughing, and you just try to give them a good experience, because I'm just like, look, the rest doesn't matter. What matters is you. It matters that you make it home. It matters and get to see your family again. It matters that you should go out there and show people love, because that is the gospel of Christ to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I took from it. So that's my story.
Well, Daphne, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Sorry it took so long.
No. Please, there's no apology necessary. I just wanted to kind of express to you how much we love you. As a former missionary of the Scotland Edinburgh Mission, that's a big thing. And a big part of what this podcast is all about is love. And making sure that people who may be in their own world, their own sphere, whatever's going on in their life, they realize that we're all part of this bigger thing. Because, Jack and I spent time together. We didn't know you on the mission personally. However,
right,
your experience there is valid. And as we've conversed over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, in advance of this conversation, I've really gained a great deal of respect for you, because you didn't go into any of the things that you've shared tonight, but hearing your experiences and the things that took place towards the end of your mission made me realize a great deal of how flawed our world is, especially within the church on a very regular basis. We've heard on many instances from mission presidents. I mean, Jack and I spent a majority of our time under President Vrains. I served under President Frederick for the last 6 months of my mission, and their prerogative was to not send people home early for the sake of the ramifications of going home. And interestingly enough, your story was one that's super unique, in that even though you didn't go home for the reasons that President Griffith had basically said he would send you for, you still had to deal with it. And you were, honestly, I want to apologize to you for the fact that people did the things that they did to you, because it wasn't right. It was presumptive. It was a situation where they need to open their hearts and look at you as the Savior looks at you, and recognize that you are a child of God. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I want you to know that I have a great deal of respect for you as you are, and the things that you have overcome. I mean, you're still in this life doing what you need to do to survive, and that's not easy for any of us, irregardless of what our choice path is. It doesn't matter. But I want to express to you how much we love you, and I am overwhelmed and grateful that you came on and shared your story with us tonight. So thank you.
I wasn't sure you were going to want me.
And we can talk offline. I'd like to know who it was that told you that they didn't think that we'd want to hear your story. But my goodness, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, we've come on here before with even special messages inviting everyone to come and participate. And we appreciate you kind of answering that invitation and being brave enough to come on and share your story. It's unique for sure.
All week.
but we really do appreciate it. And I mean, coming from the same small town in Arizona, it adds another level, at least for me, of what you've been through. That's got to be tremendously difficult. And so thank you for taking this opportunity and visiting with us, telling your story. It means a lot. And anybody else who's out there who's kind of questioning, should I go on this podcast or not, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your story. And we hope that message gets out to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Agreed. Thank you, Jack. Well, Daphne, we will say goodnight to you. We'll give you a fond cheerio, and we will certainly talk more to you soon, all right?
All right, take care.
All right, cheerio then. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.